Bogdan told me that Anton's grandsons have both worked on this base. I asked Bogdan to sing me the songs that I'd heard he's composed about whales, penguins and plankton. But no, I cannot sing, he said sadly, until the war is over. In a few weeks, he'll be back in Ukraine as a captain on the front line. As we climbed back into the Zodiac, a man emerged from a metal container, wearing only swimming trunks. It was the sauna. He waved, climbed down a ladder, and bravely plunged into the frigid Antarctic Ocean. Personally, I was glad to get back to the ship for a hot chocolate with my cousins.
Janie Hampton there. That's all for this edition of the programme. I'm Pascal Harter. The producer was Polly Hope. And we'll be back again next weekend with new stories here on the BBC World Service.
That was the BBC programme from our own correspondent. I'm Saroja Coelho.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app and on YouTube. I'm Corey Funk, in today from Marcy Marcusa. Let's say hello to the wonderful crew helping put together today's show. May McKillop is our studio director this morning. Good morning, May. Hello, Abby Adiemi. He is behind the controls and is always covering weather. And Brad Lillies is also behind the glass. He's making us look good on the YouTubes. Good morning as well to Heather Wells, who's in with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, hundreds of Manitobans gathered at the Forks for yesterday's Red Dress Day. People with connections to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people recounting stories yesterday about their loved ones before the annual Walk for Justice. We'll take you there coming up. As well, a person is in critical condition after being rescued from the Red River near the Donald Street Bridge last evening. Fire paramedic crews were called to that area around 5:30. They found a person being pulled by the strong current towards the junction with the Red River. And after getting them to safety, the patient was then rushed to hospital. Officials say it's not known how they came to be in the water or how long they were there. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News Desk. Well, let's take a look at your conditions today. It's going to be another lovely spring day out there. It finally felt like spring a little bit yesterday for the first time, didn't it? With that nice warm sun. I went to the park, chased a bunny around with my kiddo. It was so nice. It's going to be a similar situation today in Winnipeg. High of 22 is what we're heading for today. Mix of sun and cloud. 8 degrees right now. It is going to be a bit windy, though. I have my first Ultimate game tonight. A little worried about that. 20 degrees right now, going to be more like gusting 40, gusting to 60 by the afternoon. Well, stay tuned. We got a wonderful show up for you. Later on the show today, you're going to want to stay tuned because after 8 o'clock, we're going to speak with a resident in Transcona who says her back lane is a muddy mess and full of craters and rocks. She says it was dug up by the city for maintenance a week ago, but she wants it paved now. We're going to hear from her at 8:10. And first up of Sunday was Red Dress Day, as you heard in the news, a nationally recognized day to raise awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. We're going to hear from some of the people who gathered at the Forks to honor the occasion. That's coming up after World Report.
On Cue with Tom Power.
Carly Fortune wrote a romance novel she thought no one would ever see, and now 2 bestsellers later, she's about to publish her 3rd one. Carly will tell you why she doesn't shy away from themes of depression and anxiety in her book, and working with Meghan Markle on a screen adaptation.
I felt like it was going to be in really good hands.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Israel's military is telling people to evacuate eastern parts of Rafah. The IDF says it needs to move about 100,000 people to carry out an operation against Hamas. It is telling them to go to an expanded humanitarian zone. James Elder is with UNICEF. He told the BBC those areas are uninhabitable.
Well, there's nowhere to go. Khan Yunis, let's be clear, is rubble. It's not a little bit destroyed, it's utterly devastated. Deri Bala in the middle area, that's now got raw sewage running through the streets because the sanitation has just been devastated. And Al Mawasi, is a beach. We've already had reports of children dying of dehydration. So when we're told of people should move to humanitarian zones, that's a terrifying irony when humanitarians aren't working in these zones.
About 1.4 million Palestinians are crammed into Rafah right now. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said military action there was required. Hamas refused a ceasefire deal that would see the release of some hostages. Gil Dickman's cousin is being held by Hamas.
Now we're very much afraid as families of hostages that the IDF entering Rafah will risk the lives not only of innocent people, not only of soldiers, but also of some hostages who might be risked because of the attack on Rafah.
A senior Hamas official reportedly told Reuters evacuating Rafah is a dangerous escalation that will have consequences. The public safety minister says a foreign influence registry is coming. The legislation is expected to be introduced later today in the House of Commons. It follows the arrests of 3 men on Friday in connection with the murder of a Sikh activist. A murder, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says, involved the Indian government. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. And Janice, how is a registry for foreign influence expected to help?
Marcia, critics have wanted this in place for years. This would not be a registry of foreign citizens in Canada. It's more akin to a lobbyist registry, a way to track those who advocate, seek to influence decisions and events in legal ways on behalf of other countries. But also, it would enable punishment for those who overstep and engage in covert interference operations. Here's Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc.
It's about bolstering Canada's ability to detect and disrupt foreign interference. And this is important to rebuild Canadians' confidence in our democratic institutions.
MPs from all parties held a news conference last week with diaspora groups and signaled they're prepared to work together to get this registry passed and in place quickly. We've also been waiting for some reforms to the CSIS Act to bolster the capabilities of intelligence agencies. It's unclear how much of that's going to be in this same bill as the registry, but the minister hinted that the government's set to move on both.
But first, parliamentarians will discuss a private member's motion. Tell us about that.
Yeah, interesting and strategic timing here. The first hour of debate this morning features a private member's motion from BC Liberal Sukh Dhaliwal, calling on the government to review its measures to ensure that diaspora communities are protected from acts of political interference and violence. Sikhs in Canada acknowledge they're not the only community in danger, but the events of the last year makes everything more urgent. Here's Maninder Singh from the BC Sikh Gurdwara Council.
The one thing we do know is India is the only foreign actor at the moment that is basically coming down to that point where they've killed a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil.
The next phase of the commissioners' hearings this fall are going to probe what more government and security agencies can do.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. Panama is welcoming a new president today. Jose Raul Mulino was the country's former interior minister. Mulino won the general election with 35% of the vote. Many Panamanians are looking to Mulino to boost the country's economy. There's also hope he will restore trust in the government. Massive protests were staged last year over a contract awarded to a Canadian-owned copper mine. Freelance journalist Manuel Rueda has more from Panama City.
In a country facing sharp divisions, Jose Raul Mulino cast himself as the unity candidate. Running on a pro-business, right-of-center platform, Mulino says the country needs to honor its debts while not forgetting the poor. The recently elected president has promised to shut down the transit of migrants headed to the United States, a move that will score points with Washington. You have to trust me, he said in his victory speech. We will soon reveal our plans to energize the economy. His promises include investing in infrastructure projects and building a new university. But that will be an uphill battle. Last year, Panama shut down a Canadian-owned copper mine that produced 4% of the nation's GDP. The decision followed massive protests by environmental groups and others who were alarmed by a contract that renewed the mine's concession for 2 decades. Miguel Antonio Bernal, a political analyst in Panama City, says that many people perceived it as a corrupt deal.
What we have here in Panama is a heavy concentration of economic power, heavy concentration of the political power, and a social situation that hurt a lot of people in this country.
Mulino has not said how he will deal with the mine, where operations remain suspended. Manuel Rueda for CBC News, Panama City, Panama.
Donald Trump will be back in a New York courtroom today. The former U.S. president's hush money trial is in its fourth week. Prosecutors are hoping to build off the emotional testimony of Trump's former aide, who was on the stand last week. Chris Glover is monitoring the trial for us from Washington. And Chris, who are we expecting to hear from next?
Well, that is certainly one of many interesting things about this trial. Prosecutors haven't been revealing who they'll call next, but of course, two critical witnesses are still to testify. First, Stormy Daniels, the porn actress who was paid to keep quiet just ahead of the 2016 election about an alleged affair with Trump, an affair that, to be clear, Trump denies. And second, Michael Cohen, Trump's former attorney, who says he coordinated those hush money payments. We're also expecting some witnesses to walk the court through financial records, because remember, at the end of the day, Trump stands accused of falsifying business records related to those payments.
And Chris, what about the gag orders? Could Trump face any more penalties?
Yeah, certainly he could. Justice Juan Marchand considering 4 more potential gag order violations by Trump, who's not allowed to disparage jurors or witnesses in the trial. Now, earlier this week, Marchand held Trump in contempt of court and fined him $9,000 for 9 previous violations. And while Trump awaits the decision, he appears to be changing course. I want you to listen to an exchange he had with a reporter leaving court on Friday.
What was it like seeing home kids again?
So I'm not allowed to comment on any of that. As you know, I'm under a gag order.
A very different tone from Donald Trump there, especially significant here because the judge is warning that future violations could land Trump in jail. Though with these 4 potential violations already under his review, prosecutors have said they are not requesting jail time, but one of many interesting things to watch for.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
The CBC's Chris Glover in Washington. In northern New Brunswick, a community is struggling to rebuild its economy. A paper mill, chemical operation, and power plant all closed down in Dalhousie. A new mine has been proposed for the area, but as Alexander Silberman tells us, the plan does not sit well with some residents.
Between the trail and the sea, you have this geological formation.
Inside a vast quarry in New Brunswick's northernmost town, Régent Carrier looks up at towering walls of an ashen-gray volcanic rock called pozzolan. The president of Quebec-based Carbonic hopes to turn the site in Dalhousie into an open-pit mine, selling the material as a low-carbon alternative for cement production.
It will bring good job in the area.
That promise of jobs is being embraced by some residents, with talk of hundreds of people during construction and 168 permanent positions. The federal government is also supporting the project with $1.2 million for a geological survey. But some residents fear a large mine in a residential area could be harmful.
My problem is yes, it's jobs, but a job at what expense?
Gail Farron says she wants more information about noise, pollution, and other potential risks.
The industries that left, they left at least a flat piece of property, whereas this project is going to leave a scar in the landscape.
Mayor Normand Pelletier says the community is divided and developers have a responsibility to consult with the public.
So we're kind of anxious to hear the company and how they're going to promote it.
The companies behind the project say they expect to share a detailed plan with the public by the end of the year. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Dalhousie, New Brunswick.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. It's finally spring, plus 22 today. Well, coming up this hour on the show, we're about a week or so into the month-long boycott against Loblaws. It was an effort that was coordinated online. We're going to speak with an expert in public policy and digital society and discuss how the company has become the focus of this kind of consumer attention. But first, this hour on the show. Yesterday was Red Dress Day, a nationally recognized day to raise awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. We're going to hear from some of the people who gathered at the Forks to honor the occasion. And also on the show, we've got your news, your weather, and even some good music to kick off this lovely spring-like week ahead of us. Stay tuned. At 6:11, let's check in with news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, some southwest Manitoba towns are taking a hands-on approach to deal with doctor shortages. Hamiota, Glenborough, and Killarney have all hired a recruitment firm to find more physicians. It costs between $90,000 and $150,000 for each doctor. We're going to hear more about how they're doing it and why they're doing it coming up. And the daughter of a missing senior with dementia is calling for a review of his disappearance. Earl Moberg was last seen in December last year when he went out walking in North Kildonan. We're going to hear from his daughter coming up in our next news at 6:30.
Heather, how about that weather yesterday, hey?
So beautiful.
I feel like it was the first spring day.
Yeah, it felt like it, right? It finally felt even summery almost. Today's going to feel, I think, the same.
Yes, I know. I'm going to take full advantage. I got my first ultimate game today. It's supposed to be a little bit windy, though, so I'm a little nervous about that.
Yeah, it's going to whip up that Frisbee doesn't stand a chance.
Not at all, especially with my skills. Thank you very much, Heather. That's Heather Wells at our CBC News Desk. Commute's looking okay so far, but nothing to report. But if you do see something going on, you can give us a call on the commuter line, 204-788 3093. And here to tell us how windy my ultimate game is going to be tonight is Abby Adeyemi with a look at the weather. How's it going?
Good morning, Corey. I guess we needed the break from the weather system we've been seeing in the last a few days and most of last week. Today, we're actually waking up to clear skies. It's what's blessing our city this morning. It's currently 8 degrees. We're going to see a warm day. A perfect day for your game. However, as the day goes on, we should be seeing some sunny skies and then gradually increasing, some cloud cover coming our way, and then the winds will come. So it's going to be gusty at some point. So prepare for that. But you'd have a good game. So I'll just let you know that. And later tonight, we can anticipate mainly cloudy conditions to prevail, bringing it to, some chance of showers today. So what we kind of see today is clear skies, sunny skies, cloud coming in, and then a chance of rain at night. So that's, we kind of have a bit of everything. In Brandon, it's 7 degrees, a chance of showers today. Thompson is at 2 degrees, mix of sun and clouds. That's what folks would get today. Churchill is at -2, a slight chance of snow expected. Dauphin at 8 degrees. It's turning cloudy as we speak. Gimli's at 7, mainly sunny. Steinbach at 10. It's going to be sunny today, and then a transition to cloudy conditions. And Morris is going to have more of increasing cloud covers throughout the day, but currently at 8 degrees. In Winnipeg, the sky is clear. It's 8 degrees. We're going to see a warm day, start of sunshine, and then the winds will pick up, and then the clouds cover later tonight, and we'll get to a high of 22. So yes, it sure will feel like summer today. That's what I will tell you.
Well, many events were held around Winnipeg on Sunday to raise awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs hosted a Red Dress Day event at the Udena Celebration Circle at the Forks. And CBC's Arturo Chang spoke with Kyra Wilson, a former chief of Long Plain First Nation. She played a central role in the movement to search the landfill for the remains of 2 Long Plain women allegedly murdered by Jeremy Skibicki. She says the large crowd gathered at Sunday's event shows the widespread impact of violence against First Nations people.
Every family that you see here today, and all the families that are not here that are impacted by missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and missing and murdered Indigenous men and boys. When you look at First Nations people, each and every one of us are impacted by this issue some way, and it's very difficult that I guess it's difficult that we have to continue to deal with this, especially when we're talking about our family members and the hurt that our families face every single day. And so today the event is just as a support to all of our families that are impacted by this, but also such an important topic when we talk about searching the landfill and bringing our loved ones home. And so today is just a means to come together to remember all of our loved ones that still have not made it home.
Many people took the mic previously. Talk to us about the message that you wanted to convey.
Well, I'm always open to sharing, my own thoughts and opinions. But today I didn't really feel the need to speak. The families, they deserve every moment to share their message. And so today I was just here as a support. And I guess the biggest thing for me is we're currently still waiting to search the landfill. That is the biggest thing. And for me, I won't stop until we search that landfill. And so my hope is that we'll begin very soon, and we'll get the results that we're hoping for.
You told about the landfill, but last Friday there was also an announcement regarding a possible red dress alert system to be put in place here in Manitoba. Talk to us about the impact of this system. Do you think it's a good thing?
Well, we definitely need to have all of these different resources in place for our families when we are talking about missing and murdered Indigenous people. It's important that people feel supported when anyone is missing, or even if a family member, has suffered an extreme loss. It's important that we have all these resources set up. And so the Red Dress Alert is just one of those many resources that we've needed for quite some time.
Do you feel like we should invest also to prevent violence against people instead of investing into the aftermath?
Definitely. And that's something that you hear time and time again with many different systems that are negatively impacting the lives of Indigenous people, is that we need to be talking about prevention and talking about what do we do to be proactive instead of being reactive.
Talk to us about the situation here in Manitoba. Do you feel like there should be more stuff put in place to help prevent these violences?
Definitely. Most importantly, I think that people just need to know that they are loved and they are supported, and that no matter what struggle you're dealing with today, that there are people that love you and that we're always going to be there for you. And that's the biggest thing, is that people need to know that they are loved. And that's, the most important thing I feel for our people, is that you know that you are loved and that you're a part of a community.
That's Kyra Wilson, former chief of Long Plain First Nation, speaking with CBC's Arturo Chang. Melissa Robinson was also at Sunday's event. Her cousin Morgan Harris was one of the Long Plain women allegedly murdered by Jeremy Skibicki. She says even though Red Dress Day allows the community to honor their missing and murdered loved ones, she hopes it one day won't be necessary.
It's to remember and to honor all of our missing loved ones, whether they are still missing, whether they've been murdered. We need to come together to honor them and pay them that respect.
Talk to me about the message you wanted to transfer to all the people here today.
That we shouldn't be coming together to do this. We need to step up as a community, as a city, to do more for our women, to protect our women. And we need more men like this that will be there to look after us. The frontline services that need to step up, that need to happen to keep everyone safe.
Last Friday, we heard about an announcement that there's going to be a system put in place here in Manitoba, the Red Dress Alert system. What do you think about this system?
It sounds good. Let's see how well it works. So put it into play now.
Do you feel like it's too late when you get to that point where you need an alert to protect people? Do you feel some action should be put before we get to this alert?
We need to be proactive. That's exactly it. We have our most vulnerable women that are going missing left and right because there's no services out there for them. So we need to do better, not only here in Manitoba, but as a country.
And we could see today that people gathered in family. Talk to us about the importance of family in your communities.
Oh, our families are what holds us together, and our extended family, our warriors who have been there with us, they're our extended family. So, strength is always in numbers, right? So I'm a strong believer in that.
And do you feel there's still work to do here in Manitoba?
And hopefully not forever. There is still work that needs to be done, but I'm hoping that with us doing the work now and using our voices, that next generation won't have to endure what we're going through.
That was Melissa Robinson speaking with CBC's Arturo Chang at Sunday's Red Dress Day gathering at the Odena Celebration Circle at the Forks. Well, 6:21 right now, 8 degrees at the Forks, heading for a high today of 22. Going to be a little bit windy, 20 then increasing to 40, gusting to 60 near noon. So maybe may want to wear a tighter hat on your head. I had my son's hat blow off his head a couple of times actually the last couple of days. So do look out for that. Well, we got a little bit of time for some music here by Elliot Maginot, who discovered the guitar as a teenager. Encouraged by his brother, he began creating music on his own, layering in a variety of sounds on his computer, as many folks do these days. And his latest album is called I Need to Stay Here. From it, here he is with For the Living.
Dream, Lord, pull me out of here. Take it from this dream of feeling love on everything I hold dear. There's nothing here worth living for. There's nothing for living. I turn every stone there is there deep into the void. I felt it in my bones and just paid attention to the noise. The time has come to heed the call now, and I can hide it, I can hide it. So won't you go on, go on, go on, go on, without me now. My mind is numb, my soul is tired, faith is wearing thin. Where's my bird on the wire, God? Please don't let them win. There's no more bridge to burn down now. Just let me stay here. Just let me stay here. Won't you go on, go on, go on, go on, without me now. Won't you go on, go on, just go on, go on, without me now. Won't you go on, go on, just go on, without me now.
From Montreal, that's Elliot Maginot with For the Living. You can check out his new album. It's called I Need to Stay Here. Well, last Wednesday, some shoppers began a month-long boycott of Canadian grocery giant Loblaw. The effort's been coordinated online through a Reddit group, and those behind the boycott are trying to send a message about grocery prices and affordability. And to explain more about what's being proposed and discuss how Loblaw can build consumer trust, we're joined now by Vas Bednar, where she is executive director at McMaster University's Master of Public Policy in Digital Studies program. Hello there.
Hey.
So can you just explain more, what are the organizers hoping for with this proposed boycott?
Yeah, the organizers have translated this into kind of concrete policy actions that they're hoping to see. There is a petition that's already in the House of Commons as an e-petition 4974, who's counting, and they want more investigation and research into pricing strategies, They're concerned about potential price fixing and collusion, but also shrinkflation. They'd like to see Parliament explore the possibility of implementing price controls or other regulatory mechanisms on food to prevent excessive price gouging on what they refer to as essential food items. And they're also calling on Loblaw companies and Walmart to sign the Grocery Code of Conduct, which is, has been in the works for years. It's voluntary right now, but primarily intended to level the playing field. So really, it's all about, I think, competition and corporate power and market power and pricing strategies all rolled into one.
I know Loblaw has been a Canadian company for a long time, or been a company in Canada for a long time. I know we actually on CBC News, it was, I think it was almost 40 years ago, there was a similar sort of movement, maybe not as strong. I was reading about that, that it's they've kind of been, a point of ire to consumers for a while, on and off. So what sort of reputation do you think Loblaws has garnered in the eyes of Canadians?
It's funny to point to history, and we've had about 3 royal commissions that look at prices in groceries. Just if we were to hold a royal commission today, that, the context is so different. I think that when people make fun of or do a meme about Loblaw or even Galen Weston, they're just sort of responding to corporate power, dynastic family wealth, and their perception that there's a lack of choice and their mistrust that, our trust and our loyalty may be taken advantage of, that we might be paying just a little bit too much for that deodorant or that bag of chips. And there's a resentment that's sort of being fostering there, of course, coupled with the stress of an inflationary period where, your dollar just doesn't go as far as it used to. This is one of the places people are kind of channeling their annoyance or anger. So in terms of their perception as a company, they have been responsive, right? We can't discount that. The new CEO of Loblaw, his name's Purbank, has already sat down and had a meeting with Emily Johnson. Emily Johnson is the woman that started and I think moderates, or what must be one of the moderators of that infamous Reddit subpost. And, the company isn't totally in hiding. I think you're letting me answer. You're letting me meander so much. I'm so sorry. But the last thing I'll say is that sometimes the company's kind of corporate comms is just kind of gaslighting-esque, right? Like it's like very defiant. And I think that defiance is also aggravating for people to receive. They don't feel heard. They don't feel that their concern is being met. It's instead kind of being dismissed. And I think that's what's led us here.
I know you mentioned Galen Weston earlier as well, former CEO, but Galen of Loblaw, but he still has a big stake in the game. He's still chairman of the board. Loblaw's controlling shareholder. So, to what extent do perceptions of Mr. Weston inform people's ideas about the Loblaw stores and the company overall? Do you think?
He's so familiar to us, right? He wasn't just leader of the company. It was a core part of their marketing. Right? When you're watching a commercial where this billionaire in a sweater vest is talking to you about President's Choice cookies or their discount no-name brand and sort of, talking to you about how to save some money on beans, I think there's both a disconnect and a familiarity that's there. And I don't think it's ever anything personal, though it must be quite stressful and unique for him to experience what he must be experiencing as people sort of chat about him online or sort of make memeified merch. But again, it's the reality that people make decisions of these companies. People are behind these companies. And at the same time, many people are feeling that the bargain between a corporate firm and them as consumers has been eroding for too long, and they want it to improve.
And in the last 30 seconds here, just, we're still there at the beginning of this boycott. When the month is said and done, what's going to be the measure of success, you think, for these organizers? And, how do you see things kind of developing with this boycott as, this focus on affordability at Loblaw's own stores?
I think success or failure will be measured not in kind of dollar damage to the company, but in the policy progress that we see moving forward. And that's both corporate policy and formal public policy. That's the stuff that I'll be watching this month.
Thank you very much, Vaz.
Thank you.
That's Vas Bednar. She is based at McMaster University, where she's executive director of the university's Master of Public Policy and Digital Studies program. Time now for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, sunny and 8 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. We will see some clouds start to move in later this afternoon, and that wind is going to whip up southeast 40, gusting to 60 around noon today, and it will be warm, a high of 22. Hundreds marched through downtown Winnipeg last night, marking Red Dress Day. Krista Fox came to Winnipeg from Saskatchewan. She is an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women. She also works closely with the family of Ashley Moran, who went missing in North Battleford in 2018.
Our people are not statistics. Each and every one of those have families that are out there hurting, and what better to bring them and show these families that their loved ones matter.
Yesterday's march was the 4th annual MMIW2GS Plus Walk for Justice. Meanwhile, Manitoba is creating a $15 million fund to help the families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls heal. It will be managed by the Winnipeg Foundation and take contributions from anyone who wants to help. The province says it wants to invest $750,000 in that fund every year. Myrna Abraham says the money would have helped her family when her sister Sharon went missing in 2004.
It'll help with families that are now looking for for their families. It really helps with financial relief, which is basically the most stress when you're searching.
The program is set to launch next year. Some Manitoba towns are taking rural doctor recruitment into their own hands. With emergency rooms forced to close, they see it as the only way to make sure people in the area get the care they need. CBC's Josh Crabb reports.
Healthcare is a hot topic at a cafe in Killarney. Manager Marlon Tripp is among those concerned.
Right now we are in a doctor shortage.
The town takes a hands-on approach to the problem. Mayor Janice Smith says they've hired a recruitment firm to find more physicians, even though healthcare falls under provincial jurisdiction.
That has been the age-old question. This is not a municipal responsibility.
Hamiota and Glenborough have also hired Waterford Global to find physicians. Prairie Mountain Health CEO Trina Slate says it has agreed to split the cost of between $90,000 and $150,000 per doctor with communities.
We've had to explore sort of every avenue possible.
The health region is short around 80 doctors. Manitoba's health minister says the government is working with health authorities to recruit more physicians, but with the province struggling, communities say they have no choice but to get involved too. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Killarney.
A person is in critical condition after being rescued from the Assiniboine River near the Donald Street Bridge last evening. Fire paramedics crews were called there just before 5:30. They found a person being pulled by the strong current towards the junction of the Red River. After getting them to shore, the patient was treated by paramedics and rushed to hospital. Officials say it's not known how long they were in the water or how they came to be there. The fire paramedic service reminds people waterways can be hazardous this time of year. Very cold water, very fast currents, and unseen debris. The Israeli military has started evacuating people from the southern Gaza city of Rafah ahead of a ground operation. On the platform X, the military says it has a plan to gradually move Palestinian civilians from eastern Rafah to a humanitarian area along the Mediterranean coast. It says the plans will be conveyed through flyers, text messages, phone calls, and media broadcasts. Over the weekend, ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas failed to reach a deal. You can hear the latest national and international news on World Report at 7. The daughter of a missing senior with dementia is calling for a review in his disappearance. Earl Moberg was last seen in December of last year when he went out walking in North Kildonan. His daughter, Britt Moberg, wants to see better access to home care for aging populations. And she wants experts to visit people's homes to teach them about things like tracking devices for people with dementia.
My mom did find one device on her own, but we do know that there are limitations for all of those
things. And, for my father, he could take it off and lose things and change his clothes. So we know that multiple strategies for tracking are really needed as part of a really robust safety plan for people.
Moberg says she recently contacted the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. She believes her father's disappearance meets the criteria of a critical incident. And WestJet and its mechanics union have agreed on a tentative deal, avoiding a strike by about 670 aircraft maintenance engineers and skilled trade groups. If both sides ratify this contract, it will be the first approved collective bargaining agreement between WestJet and the Aircraft Mechanics Fraternal Association. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News Desk. 6:35 right now. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa this morning. Let's take a look at your commute real quick, which is not much of a commute in terms of any major issues going on out there. But if you do see something, if you're walking, biking, driving, give us a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093. But there is lots to talk about in the weather, mostly about how nice it is out there. And Abby Adeyemi is in with a look at our regional forecast. Hey there, Abby.
Good morning, Curry. Yes, let's look at what the regions have across the province today. For the south here, it's just going to be that wind that will be picking up around noon. That's what we should focus on in the south. And for the north, we're going to see a mix of, sun and cloud. Currently, Winnipeg, it's 8 degrees, clear sky, hanging overhead, setting the tone for the day. We should get ready for a weather transition. We're going to start up with mainly sunny skies, and then just don't get comfy with that because some clouds will roll in later by the afternoon, and then you expect the winds to pick up by noon. Tonight, the clouds will dominate, bringing more like a chance of showers, and the temperatures will be dropping to a low of 12 degrees with southeasterly winds continuing. If we head to Brandon, it's currently 6 degrees, partly cloudy over there. Expect a mix of sun and clouds today, a 60% chance of showers later. And north in Thompson, it is 2 degrees, mostly cloudy at the moment. We're anticipating a mix of sun and clouds for folks in the north with a high of 17 degrees. Farther north in Churchill, it is -2 with freezing fog. Today brings cloudy skies with a chance of light snow and freezing drizzle this morning, and we'll see the high near +1. Down in Dauphin, it's currently 9 degrees and clear. Today's forecast includes a mix of sun and clouds, turning cloudy this afternoon, and then we'll see a high of 19. In Gimli, it's 7 degrees and cloudy. The Interlake region is going to be expecting mainly sunny skies with increasing cloudiness later this afternoon, and they would get to a high of 20. Good morning to folks in Steinbach. You're currently sitting at 9 degrees with cloudy conditions. Today, you should anticipate mainly sunny skies with increasing cloudiness this afternoon, and you'd hit a high of 22. Finally, in Morris, it's 8 degrees and cloudy. The Pembina Valley region expects more of some clouds today, and then head into a high of 22, just like Steinbach. In summary, today starts sunny for Winnipeg, but then ends with some clouds and a chance of showers tonight. And tomorrow brings a mix of sun and clouds, and with showers expected later in the day. It's actually shaping up to be an eventful 24 hours on the weather front. We're heading to a high of, let's see now. What's the high for today?
22?
22. Because I'm like, yeah, I know it's like 22 across the board. Like 20, 22. Yeah, that's what we see.
Perfect. I love it. It's like, I think that's perfect. I don't know what the exact room temperature is, but I'm guessing it's around 22.
Let's see. Room temperature. Room temperature is actually, I'm just checking, it's 21.
Oh, 21. Okay. Yeah. The room temperature plus. I'll take it. Thank you very much, Abby.
You're welcome.
That's Abby Adeyemi, keeping an eye on your weather. Well, time for business news with Phil DeMont. Hi there, Phil.
Hi, Corey.
So we just had an interview about the boycott over Loblaws, but what's interesting is that it actually looks like consumers are pushing back against high prices at the mall as well as on top of grocery stores. So what's going on there?
Yeah, part of it's because the economy is slowing. They don't have as much income. And part of it is they're just tired of paying that much for a bunch of broccoli. The big picture is retail spending in Canada and the U.S. down so far this year. And so you see some major change knocking down prices in response. So a couple here. In February, jewelry sales in Canada down about 3%, but they've been stagnant for months. So partly in response to that, but also problems in the States. DeBurr's, who controls diamond prices, cut prices by 25% so far this year. IKEA Canada dropped prices recently on about 1,000 items. Michael's, the art supply store, they cut prices on, I think it was 5,000 items in the U.S. Now, I can't tell whether that happened in Canada, but they're North American, so it probably did as well. Then you've got, as you say, the ongoing customer boycott of Loblaw. 63,000 members online pushing back against the chain, arguing that against out-of-control price hikes by Loblaws. To some extent, Corey, you can see prices coming down. Now, you pick and choose, but you pay close attention, but you can see some numbers. So chicken breast meats are mainly food items, but chicken breasts down about 7% since last May. Dozen eggs down 4.5%. White rice down 3%. But before somebody starts yelling at their radio, chicken breasts are 13% higher now than they were in January 2021. And that's the not trick, but that's the math issue here. You're starting from a higher level. So eggs might be down 4.5%, but it's not like they were back to June or pre-pandemic numbers. They're going to be up higher. The basic message, though, or at least recently, is consumer spending slumping in Canada and the U.S. Companies finally appear, anyway, to be taking some notice.
Gotcha. So when you hear companies say, we're lowering prices, you kind of got to still kind of furrow your eyebrow a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, London Drugs also is getting its stores back online this week. We have one here in Winnipeg at St. Vital, and it's actually, according to Google, it's temporarily closed right now. So this is after a major computer breach at the company. What can we expect after these? Can we expect more of these attacks this year, you think?
Well, experts say, that's because partly we're heading into election season in 2024 and 2025 in Canada and the U.S. And in the past, at least recent past, we've experienced overseas hacking with groups trying to influence those elections. So you're going to start seeing more of that. But also, the hackers are getting more sophisticated. So I'll start with London Drugs. It's mainly based out in your area. You go Saskatchewan, BC, Alberta, Manitoba. They started turning computers on more than 80 locations over the weekend. That's after that major attack of their computer system by outside hackers. Company says customer data was not compromised in the attack. But in Canada, we're seeing a growing list of organizations that have had to man the ramparts against nefarious computer types. RCMP, FinTrack, the anti-money laundering people, Giant Tiger, the city of Hamilton, a couple of towns in Quebec. You get the picture. Everybody's under attack right now. And the same with the U.S., and probably more so. The best I could find, or the most prominent one, was a subsidiary of United Healthcare. It's one of the U.S. biggest companies got hacked, so possibly a third of its customers might have lost data in that attack. Experts say more collaboration between government and industry is needed, especially because organizations are increasingly deploying artificial intelligence, and that's going to make it harder. But basically they say, look, with the level of sophistication of the hackers now, it's not a question of if you'll be attacked, it's when.
Also, I know, this is more than just companies. Most Canadians are getting bombarded with more hacking attacks themselves, too, aren't they?
Yeah, these are the spam attacks, whether on the phone or on your computer. I still have my Toronto number, and I get a series of calls every quarter from a collection agency who's trying to collect money from my ex-mother-in-law who passed 4 years ago, and she was never in business. So it's like, okay, I'm not replying to that. You get more of these. So 6 months ended March 31st. There are 4,700 complaints reported to Canada's National Spam Reporting Centre. Half of them were from phishing messages. That's kind of what I was talking about. A message from an unknown origin, trying to get you to give up personal data about yourself. And I suspect that's only the tip of the iceberg, the 4,700, because 48% of all emails are spam, experts say. And that means on average, and this is a high number, but that's the number I have, you get 121 emails daily. 60 of them are going to be spam. And if you don't think this bombardment works, you're kind of wrong. So far this year, Canadians have lost more than $123 million in fraud. Now, if this was 2 decades ago, it'd be a guy on your doorstep trying to sell you something. Now it's all online.
Right. You can't really just kick them out of your inbox. Okay. Wow. well, I was just thinking about the good old days when people you just be like, sorry, I just don't want.
I just never answered my door. I literally never answered the door.
Okay, you just shut in. Smart. Well, what's going on in markets?
Right now, there was that weak economic employment data out of the U.S. on Friday, but that actually has helped markets. So in Europe, Germany, France, UK, up close to 0.75%. Same story in China. Hong Kong up 0.5%. Shanghai, that market up more than 1%. Oil up 75 cents, $78.86 a barrel. Gold's up $22, $2,330 U.S. an ounce. And the Canadian dollar, it's up slightly, trading at 73.15 cents U.S.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Thanks, Corey.
That's Phil DeMont with your business news. 6:45 right now here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcuse. And a quick shout out to my little guy. He's staying home today from daycare because he's got a bit of a fever, but he has been watching us on YouTube, which you can do too on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. So hey there, buddy. Hope you feel better. I'll be home afternoon. I'll give you a big hug. Hopefully you feel better. Have a good nap today, bud. Love ya. Well, so we got a little bit of time for some music. Hopefully might calm the fever down a little bit. Boundless Possibilities is the name of the upcoming album from Alberta's Kaylee Cardinal. And from it, here she is with Over and Over.
When I caught your eye, it took me by surprise. I felt the ground beneath me shake. Then you held me through the night. Something just sound right. It's got me wide awake. It's the things you never said running in my head. Over and over and over and over and over again. Over and over and over and over and over again. When you tell me that you love me, almost make a believer of me. 'Cause I lose myself in your eyes. And like a hammer to my heart, I am blown apart. When you reveal your pretty lies, then you pick up the pieces and I'm back in your head. Over and over and over and over and over again. Over and over and over and over and over again. Well, I've been here before, picking my heart up off the floor. Why am I giving myself to you? When baby, I want more, more, I can't fight this feeling, babe, it's got me reeling. I can't bring myself to stay. You treated me so cruel, go find another fool. 'Cause I can't go on this way. You don't wanna hear me when I say it's the end. Over and over and over and over and over again. Hey! Over and over and over and over and over again.
That's Kaylee Cardinal with Over and Over. Well, time now 6:49 here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcuse. 8 degrees at the Forks right now, heading for a high of 22. Well, hunger and starvation are spreading across Sudan as the country's civil war passes the 1 year mark. The fighting erupted last April between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF. And the World Food Program says with no end to the war in sight, the outlook is bleak as nearly 5 million people stand on the brink of famine. Well, for more on the hunger crisis in Sudan, we're joined by Annabelle Symington. She is a communications and media officer with the United Nations World Food Program based in Rome. Good morning.
Morning, Corey.
So how would you describe the level of hunger we're witnessing in Sudan right now?
Hunger in Sudan is already at dangerously high levels, and unfortunately, the forecast is bleak, and it looks like it's only going to get worse. It's already been a year of conflict, and what we're looking at is the potential that this war triggers the world's largest hunger crisis. That would be across Sudan as well as South Sudan and Chad, where millions of refugees have fled to escape the fighting and to escape hunger.
And how can you just give us an idea how widespread the situation is in Sudan right now?
So it is very much across Sudan that we're seeing these dangerously high levels of hunger, because so many people have been forced from their homes by the fighting. You've got over 8 million people who have fled their homes within the country, and then the million who have left the country to try and seek refuge. So that's disrupted livelihoods, markets. Entire communities are just have been abandoned. We've got around 5 million people who are facing emergency levels of hunger. That's one step away from famine-like conditions, and these are people who are mostly trapped in the conflict hotspots, the places where the conflict is particularly raging. And these are also the areas that it's hardest for us as the humanitarian community to reach them. So that and we're the lifeline right now, because there is just very little food in the markets. Food prices for what food is there has skyrocketed, so it's unaffordable for people. And on top of that, the harvest has been decimated by the war, so food supply is limited.
So in terms of the cause of this, it seems like the war itself really is the primary driver of this famine. So how has the war affected the country's agricultural and food supply? You kind of hinted at it earlier, but yeah, what's the direct impact of the war?
So the conflict has forced people from their homes. And so that means farmers who've been forced to leave their land, and businesses that now just stand abandoned, because the war has been so brutal and so widespread, that it has just just normal daily life is a distant memory for millions. You've now got people gathering in areas where there is relative security. But for many people, they have kind of moved to one area only to find that the war has chased them, and then they're forced to move again. And each time these people are forced to move, they just become more vulnerable to hunger. They're able to move with even less. It costs money to move as well, so exhausting what little supplies that they have as well.
And then what are people doing to survive, when they are forced to these extreme situations?
We're hearing some really deeply upsetting stories of what people are being forced to resort to in order to survive. I'm hearing stories of families eating grass. They're eating the shells of peanuts just to fill their bellies, just so they can give something to their kids. A colleague of mine was recently in Port Sudan. That's an area where we, as WFP, have our main kind of hub, our main office, and it's an area where many families have fled to try and get safety and to try and get food. And my colleague met with a mother and her son. Her son was 13, but he's so malnourished after just a year of war that he looked barely 8. And him and his mum had been trapped in their apartment in Khartoum for nearly a year, unable to leave because they were too scared because of the war raging around them. And there were, horrific reports of what is happening to families as they do try to flee, and the sexual violence against women as well. So they were too scared to leave. Finally, hunger pushed them out, and they did leave. And Ahmed, this little boy, he just simply said to my colleague when she asked him, what is it like to now have left home and to be here? He said, at least there's some food here. And that's because in Port Sudan, we are able to deliver consistently to the people. But But people who are trapped in these conflict hotspots, we're not able to get food at the level that we need to them because of the war.
Right. I imagine it must feel like a drop in the bucket sometimes based on the scale of this. So at this rate, what will widespread hunger mean for displaced people, especially for children?
Well, the impact on children is always the worst. You know, this means stunting, devastating impact on their development, which really means that the impact of this war is going to last far beyond the end of the conflict. It really is going to affect an entire generation of children, and that will affect the future of Sudan for an entire generation. And so really the impact of this can't be overstated. In the immediate term, you know, we need to be getting food into the hands of people, and that means we need to have our trucks on the road every single day delivering food. We have the food there ready to go. But unfortunately, our trucks are getting stuck at checkpoints, sometimes for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time. And so we need the warring parties to allow our staff to work safely and to allow the people who need our food to also reach us safely. And so that we can provide the nutrition support to children and the food to families that they so desperately need right now.
And for people listening who do want to help, how can they provide support?
So WFP is completely voluntarily funded, so you can donate to WFP. And on top of that, it's also, please remember Sudan. Please keep Sudan in your thoughts. Right now, Sudan risks becoming a forgotten crisis, despite the fact that we're talking about these staggering numbers of people who are facing hunger. And we really need the international community to bring pressure on the warring parties to abide by their commitments under their obligations, under international humanitarian law, to allow humanitarian actors like WFP to reach the people who need us. And that's something that we can all do. We can tell our government, our elected officials, that we care about Sudan and that we need to see them step up and bring the diplomatic pressure needed to bear on the Sudanese warring parties.
Annabelle, thank you.
Thank you.
That was Annabelle Symington. She is a communications and media officer for the United Nations World Food Program, and we reached her at its headquarters in Rome, Italy. Well, 6:56 right now. Let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, hundreds of Manitobans gathered at the Forks yesterday, marking Red Dress Day. People with connections to missing Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people recounting stories about their loved ones before the annual Walk for Justice. Meanwhile, Manitoba is creating a $15 million fund to help the families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls heal. The daughter of a missing senior with dementia is calling for a review of his disappearance. Earl Moberg was last seen in December last year when he went out walking in North Kildonan. He has not been found. We're going to hear from his daughter coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, looking at the commute right now, it's been pretty quiet overall, but you can always give us a call if you see something going on. May McKillop is standing by to take your call, 204-788-3093. Looking for a lovely day here in Winnipeg and pretty much actually right across the province. 8 degrees right now at the Forks, heading for a high of 22 today. Might be a little bit windy, 20 kilometers per hour right now, but as the afternoon, it's going to pick up 40, gusting to 60 by the afternoon. Brandon, 7 degrees right now, heading for a high of 18. A bit of a chance of showers for you as well. Well, still to come on the show today, TikTok has vowed to challenge a new U.S. law that would ban the China-related app from the U.S. market, but the ongoing dispute between China and the U.S. is causing concern among Canadians as well. We're going to speak with a local TikTok influencer here in studio coming up after 7:30. And right after World Report, we're going to find out what some students in Winnipeg can expect to learn and experience about the Holocaust and other human rights issues as the Tour for Humanity bus makes its way to the city. We're going to hear from its senior educator coming up just after World Report. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Stay tuned. Lots more to come. I'll see you about 11 minutes or so. Have a good one.
Today on The Current.
If you look at them globally, they have these kinds of issues. They start at one price and they end at the other.
The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion finally opened this month after years of controversy, cost overruns, and delays. Don Farrell, the CEO of the government-owned infrastructure project, is here to defend that pipeline, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Right now, smoke can be seen over eastern Rafah. As Hamas-affiliated TV station is reporting, the Israeli army has carried out airstrikes there. And Reuters is reporting Egypt is raising its military preparedness level. CBC News cannot confirm that, but we can confirm the Israeli military has ordered 100,000 Palestinians to evacuate eastern Rafah. It is raising concerns a ground offensive is imminent, and Hamas may walk away from ceasefire negotiations completely. Dominic Velitis has the latest.
This morning, Palestinian families began to leave eastern Rafah. The Israeli military has used text messages, phone calls and airdropped flyers ordering residents to evacuate the city and move towards what it's described as an expanded humanitarian zone in nearby Khan Yunis and Al-Mawasi. But one of Rafah's residents, Rada Al-Qawad, told the BBC neither area was safe.
Khan Yunis is completely destroyed and they conducting some ground invasion. Deir al-Balah, the middle area, it's all being targeted. I've been there and I saw huge destructions in areas. Camps of Maghazi, al-Burayj and al-Nusayrat, also they are near the border of Gaza, so it's still very dangerous.
A senior Hamas official said Israel's evacuation order is a dangerous escalation that will have consequences. The Israeli military says it's part of a limited scope operation, but wouldn't confirm media reports it is in fact preparation for a ground assault of Rafah. A prospect Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said yesterday could happen very soon, and one that's generating considerable anxiety in Western capitals over fears the 1.4 million people sheltering there will get caught up in the fighting. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, London.
China's President Xi Jinping is in Paris today. The visit is part of his first European visit in 5 years. He is meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. They gave brief comments on the agenda ahead of their talks behind closed doors. Here is von der Leyen.
Both China and the European Union have a shared interest in peace and security and in the effective functioning of the rules-based international order, especially against a backdrop of a very turbulent environment, be it in Europe, in the Middle East, or in East Asia.
The talks are expected to address growing trade tensions and the war in Ukraine. Xi is hoping to win over his European critics. They want more balanced trade relations and are concerned about China's deepening ties with Russia. The Defense Ministry in Russia says it plans to hold drills simulating the use of tactical nuclear weapons. The announcement comes days after comments by senior Western officials about the war in Ukraine. This is the first time that Russia has publicly announced drills involving tactical nuclear weapons, though its strategic nuclear forces regularly hold exercises. Journalists at Italy's state broadcaster RAI are going on strike. They say Giorgia Meloni's right-wing government has too much control over what they say. So today they're walking off the job. Megan Williams has the story from Rome.
Gentili telespettatori e telespettatrici.
The recorded announcement of the 24-hour strike by journalists at Italy's public broadcaster RAI, listing off grievances from staff shortages and scrapping performance top-ups to what journalists say is a political attempt to turn RAI into a mouthpiece for the government.
Il tentativo della RAI di censurare.
With the surprise cancellation of an appearance by a writer who was expected to criticize Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and her party for not repudiating their post-fascist roots. RAI has long been at the center of Italy's political spoils system, with new governments here handing out top jobs and board positions to loyal supporters and party members. But renowned investigative journalist Sigfredo Ranucci says this government has taken things further, not only canceling shows it doesn't like, but drafting a new bill introducing prison terms for journalists found guilty of reporting information from leaks.
Mentre all'estero vengono premiati col Pulitzer, qui in Italia rischiano il carcere.
While other countries award journalists for using leaked data to report on tax evasion in fiscal paradises, in Italy, he says, journalists could soon go to jail for the same thing. The Italian Broadcaster Board issued a statement accusing its journalists of promoting a fake news narrative, that they're being muffled or censored, and that reduction in staffing is part of modernizing RAI. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
WestJet and its mechanics union have agreed on a tentative deal. They have avoided a strike by about 670 aircraft maintenance engineers and skilled trade groups with the airline. If both sides ratify the contract, it will be the first approved collective bargaining agreement between WestJet and the Aircraft Mechanics Fraternal Association. Terms of the deal have not been made public, but wages, outsourcing, scheduling, and layoff protection were all sticking points during negotiations. People in Nunavut are frustrated. They have suddenly lost access to Amazon's free shipping. Last month, Canada Post closed a loophole that helped many communities get free delivery. Now many people are facing higher grocery bills. More than half the population in the territory face food insecurity. Nick Murray has the story.
People are struggling, right?
Rankin Inlet's Amanda Echirk says she used Amazon for things like canned fruits and vegetables, coffee pods, tomato sauce, and dog food. The loophole saved her hundreds of dollars a year on groceries by not buying locally at higher prices.
The more money that you have, that you save by buying goods at Amazon, the more money you have then to go into the store and buy the fresh fruits and the fresh vegetables.
Amazon uses Canada Post to get orders to the north, where one postal code often services the whole community. To get free shipping, customers like Echirk had their real town names and P.O. boxes, but falsified the last digit of their community's postal code, with Amazon unaware the code was fake. Once the packages were flown in, the postmaster corrected the address and delivered the order.
There were additional costs.
John Hamilton is Canada Post's Vice President of Communications. The company is now enforcing its policy that any misaddressed mail gets returned to sender.
The problem is with the volumes and with how much that we see, it just ends up backing up the system.
Amazon is at a loss to explain how the packages with wrong postal codes made it through their systems. The company's Elisa Carroll says Iqaluit is the only Nunavut community that is entitled to free Prime shipping.
But not all communities, especially those more remote communities, receive free shipping.
A petition to change that has so far garnered nearly 2,500 signatures. Nick Murray, CBC News, Iqaluit.
A Taylor Swift fan says bad blood is exactly what has come between her and a popular travel website. Sarah Fournier says Booking.com canceled the accommodations she reserved for Swift's show. Then the place she thought she had secured was relisted at a higher price. She took her story to Rosa Marcatelli and our Go Public team.
Very excited.
As soon as Taylor Swift fan Sarah Fournier heard the mega music star was coming to Toronto, she started making plans to travel from Montreal for the November show.
I just knew that it was going to be difficult to get accommodations later on.
She booked 2 places for her group on Booking.com, and soon after, swiftly scored concert tickets. But just when everything was set, Booking.com said her reservations had been canceled. By that time, demand and prices had skyrocketed.
Crazy expensive.
Booking.com wouldn't help Fournier get a similar place at a similar price. So she called one of the properties she'd booked directly. They said her reservation was just one of many that had been canceled and then relisted for more. Here's part of that call.
So you don't see an issue with that?
Absolutely not. Our goal in business is to maximize profit.
Booking.com's terms of service repeatedly say they're not responsible when customers don't get what they're promised. But online protection researcher Jonathan Penny says they can't legally waive potential responsibility.
There are
protections for representations that are false, misleading, or deceptive.
Booking.com tells GoPublic both of the properties Fournier booked have been removed from the site, saying her experience is extremely rare. In the end, a family friend stepped up, saying Fournier and her group could stay at his place. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
And this is the most read story at cbcnews.ca. You'll be able to see the exorbitant 4-digit prices for rentals in the city. That's on our main page, cbcnews.ca. That is the latest international and national news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Well, coming up this hour on the show, a nurse with roots from Poplar River First Nation says having a representative workforce is extremely important when working with people in crisis. We're going to talk to her about why on this Indigenous Nurses Day. That's coming up later this hour. Also on the show, Canadian influencers are among those concerned about the potential ban on TikTok in the U.S. We're going to talk to a local influencer about how this ban might impact her bottom line, coming up after 7:30. But first up, this hour, a senior educator with the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center will join us to tell us about the Tour for Humanity bus, a mobile education bus that's rolled into Winnipeg just this morning. That's all coming up right here on Information Radio. Stay tuned. 7:11 right now. Let's check in with news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, some southwest Manitoba towns are taking a hands-on approach to deal with doctor shortages. Hamiota, Glenborough, and Killarney have all hired a recruitment firm to find more physicians. It costs them between $90,000 and $150,000 per doctor. Are they having any luck? We'll hear about that coming up. Also, a person is in critical condition after being rescued from the Assiniboine River near the Donald Street Bridge last evening. Fire paramedics crews found a person being pulled by the current towards the junction with the Red River. Officials are now advising you to stay away from waters in springtime. We'll hear more coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
At 7-Eleven, let's check in with your commute, which is pretty quiet overall.
I guess it's a 7-Eleven weather today. Some slurpy time once it hits 22.
It's definitely slurpy weather out there, isn't it, Abby?
Once it hits 22, but not now. We're still at 9 degrees. The sun is out for sure, and we're going to see a warm day ahead. A perfect day for that slurpee that you'd want to get. And we're in for the treat, actually. The sun is going to be taking the center stage, promising mainly sunny skies. However, don't get too comfortable with that because, we're going to see some clouds rolling later this afternoon, and then the wind will come with that from the southeast, gusting near noon. So you might just want to prepare for that. Now, as we transition into the night period, the clouds will dominate the skyline, bringing them a chance of showers, and then the wind will continue from that southeast that we've been talking about, dipping the temperatures to 12 degrees. That's where we actually stay once we get to the high of 22 later. And tomorrow we're expecting a mix of sun and cloud. But in Brandon, it's 7, sun also shining now. Partly cloudy over there. Thompson is at 2 degrees. Also, the sun is poking out. Churchill is at -1, a chance of snow later. Dauphin is at 8 and sunny. Gimli is mainly sunny at the moment at 8 degrees. Steinbach at 10. Morris at 9. In Winnipeg, the sun is out. We're at 8 degrees. It's going to be warm today. And then we'll see some winds later and head into a high of 22.
Thank you very much, Abby.
You're welcome.
That's Abby Adeyemi. In terms of your commute so far this morning, it's been quite quiet so far. Haven't heard anything on our commuter line. But May McKillop, our studio director, is standing by to take your calls if you do see something going on out there. You can give us a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093. Well, the Tour for Humanity bus is a mobile education center that rolled into Winnipeg this week. Over the past 10 years, the large blue bus has traveled to over 1,000 schools across Canada. Inside, students learn about human rights, the Holocaust, and racism and intolerance. And Ilana Kingsbury is a senior educator with the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center. She'll be bringing the Tour for Humanity to several Winnipeg schools this week. Good morning, Ilana.
Good morning.
Good morning. So can you start just by telling us more about your organization and who Simon Wiesenthal was?
Oh, absolutely. So the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies is a Jewish Canadian human rights organization. We're founded on lessons of the Holocaust. And our namesake is a man named Simon Wiesenthal. He was both a Holocaust survivor and probably most famously known as a Nazi hunter in the post-war period. He always pushed back against that term because, he really wasn't about violence or revenge. He thought that he should be a part of the justice process as a direct witness to the crimes of, the Nazi regime. So he helped put over 1,000 different Nazis on trial, for decades in the post-war period. And he also was an author, an artist, and an advocate for human rights.
And yourself, I'm curious about how you got involved in this and how long you've been doing this for.
Oh, goodness. Well, so I've been with the center for about 8.5 years. I'm a senior educator. It's something that, I feel incredibly privileged to be able to teach these subjects to students across Canada. I'm originally from a small town called Brockville, Ontario. It's sort of not a very diverse community, I would say. So it was a great place to grow up. Very rural. So I really personally I enjoy going to communities outside of our urban centers and speaking with a lot of students. Outside of that kind of GTA core because Canada's got a lot of different communities. So that's why we're thrilled to be on tour right now.
So you've been on the road for a while now. How long have you been on the road for?
This is our first day in Winnipeg, actually. So this is the beginning of the tour, but it will be continuing on for the next 6 weeks, basically. So I'll be meeting the bus a little bit later on in Vancouver. We're heading to Saskatoon. We're heading to Calgary. So we're going to be having a busy couple months ahead. But as you said, the tour has been operating for the past 10 years, and we do a lot of different trips, kind of to different communities, kind of throughout the year, weather dependent. As we just listened to the weather report. So that's the biggest obstacle to reaching a lot of communities, in, like the fall and winter. But
So when your bus pulls up at a school, what happens?
Well, so we park the bus, we set up, which is basically a fairly quick process, and inside the bus is effectively a mobile classroom/movie theater. We have 30 seats inside. We have a wall of projection screens opposite, and students get to experience a sort of interactive multimedia presentation about either, as you said, the Holocaust or other human rights themes.
And what have you noticed in terms of, over the years doing this about what the reaction is from kids who take part in these workshops?
Well, the reaction is overwhelmingly positive, and that's been consistent throughout. Students are always really excited. It's a little bit of a different environment. Schools also seem to really appreciate that it's kind of like a field trip is coming directly to your school. But one of the things that students, I would say, as we're moving forward in time, history, it can sometimes become more like a story than reality for people that haven't lived through those times. And so, I think bringing, humanizing the history and sort of helping redirect that interest, to understanding the experience of victims or lesser understood aspects of the Holocaust. That's really what I enjoy doing. And I think that, we're seeing that students are very interested and engaged on these topics, but definitely they need some guidance.
And why do you think it's so important for students, at a young age or like at an early age in school to start learning about heavy but important topics like the Holocaust?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think the reality is that especially in the age of social media, we can't protect students from these topics. They already are learning about them, even, in their own time. They're picking up bits and pieces. And so I think, it's something that is necessary. We may not want to always have these conversations. And I think, we certainly, for us, we are very mindful of the age and, understanding level of different groups of students. But we do believe that, these conversations can't wait.
And which schools are you going to be chatting with in the next week or so while you're here in Winnipeg?
Well, so today we're at Shaftesbury High School, but we're going to be doing a tour through several different schools, actually. So every day we'll be at a different school. I believe, and I'm sorry, I'm actually struggling right now to remember our destination for tomorrow. But I know we're at a Cole Leila North Community School a little later in the week. So yeah, we're really looking forward to working with schools in the Winnipeg area.
And what's it like for you doing this work? I'm curious because like I mentioned before, it's a heavy topic, but is there a certain uplifting aspects to at least knowing that kids are learning about this and can make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, absolutely. It is heavy, and it certainly it weighs, I think, on all of us personally when you're engaged in this kind of work. But for me, my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. And I do feel it's really important to honor, their memory, to honor the history of the Holocaust and all of the victims and survivors. And so for me, on a personal level, I do, I think that is something that gives me, that personal drive to keep going, and definitely that it's really meaningful work.
Well, Ilana, thanks so much for joining us, and enjoy your time in Winnipeg.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too. Ilana Kingsbury is a senior educator with the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
Yeah, do make sure to call Radio Noon. And actually today here on Information Radio, we're actually asking you a question to call our listener line as well. Because coming after 8, we're going to speak with a resident in Transcona who says her back lane is a muddy mess full of craters and rocks. And she says it was dug up by the city for maintenance a week ago, but she wants it paved now. We're going to hear from her after 8:10. So we want to hear from you. In the meantime, you can call our listener line. Tell us how your back lane is doing. Are you happy with it? Maybe you'd like to see some improvements. Tell me what you're seeing in your back lanes here in Winnipeg. We talk about our roads a lot out there and potholes, but I'm curious what your back lanes are looking like. Give us a call on our listener line, 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205. Well, we have a little bit of time for some music before your morning sports this morning. And here's a new song from up-and-coming Winnipeg pop artist Reese. This one's called Without You.
Cold and empty, heart is still breaking. Can't believe you're gone, girl, I'm shaking. Sitting by my phone, I'm still waiting. How could you let me go without saying I can't let you go? Whoa. want you to know. Let it pour, let it pour, let it pour, 'cause you're the only one that I feel love for. I need more, I need more, I need more. This can't be the end, I'll be better than before. Let it pour, let it pour, let it pour, 'cause you're the only one that I feel love for. I need more, I need more, I need more. This can't be the end, I'll be better than before.
That's Winnipeg's own Reese with Without You. You're hearing that right here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa, and it's time for morning sports now with Scott Regier. And let's start with hockey here, Scott, because Canada's hopes of ending a Stanley Cup drought now reside with just 2 teams.
Yeah, Corey, and soon to be one team, right?
Oh,
because the 2 remaining, Edmonton and Vancouver, are getting set to meet in the beginning of the second round on Wednesday night. So by the time that's all said and done between the Oilers and Canucks, one will remain standing, trying to end this 31-year Stanley Cup drought for our country. It's going to be, I mean, whenever you have 2 Canadian teams meeting the playoffs, it's bedlam, and we'll see more of the same, I'm sure. Quinn Hughes, the very understated American captain of the Canucks, Corey, was asked whether he appreciates what kind of intensity lies ahead.
I probably don't, but I think once this thing gets going, we will. But obviously it's 2 markets where the hockey is so important to each city and so important to the people. So it's going to be a really competitive series, I'm sure, and the fans will enjoy it and whatnot.
Whatnot. It's just one of those words. Don't like the word. What does that mean? Anyways,
and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Just a toss-off word.
Exactly.
But it sounds like he's pretty chilled ahead of a series that even if the Canucks swept the Oilers, Corey, during the regular season, I think most people accept the fact the Oilers are favorites, if not heavily.
Yeah.
Certainly from where I sit. What do you think?
I think it's the same. At least in Winnipeg, this is just like a very much like a straw poll, like friends kind of thing. I think geographically, we're a little closer to Edmonton. I think we're just also kind of similar cities in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I think at least the people in my world are all kind of generally going, let's go Edmonton. So far.
You know what? With Connor McDavid and company, they have the best shot at ending this cup drought, right? Let's be honest.
It's also, just putting it, it's like what's going to end it for all of us here, you know?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, I know, meanwhile, Canadian teams are well positioned to win a title in the first season of the Professional Women's Hockey League. What's going on there?
Yeah, so the regular season ended yesterday, Corey, with Toronto and Montreal finishing 1-2 in the standings. Toronto, by the way, boasting a couple of Manitobans, St. Anne's great defender, Jocelyn Larocque, as well as Brandon's Kristen Campbell in goal. So Toronto's first place finish, Corey, means because of a great and very unique rule in the PWHL, they will choose their first-round playoff opponent. Coach Tori Ryan was asked whether it'll be third place Boston or fourth place Minnesota.
We've looked at a lot of deep stats on it. You look at travel, you look at preference, you look at where teams are right now. Right now, I don't think we'd know which one outweighs the other. It's territory I've never been in. The one thing that I really like is no players were too focused on it.
There would seem to be little to pick between Minnesota or Boston since they finished with exactly the same records, and Toronto had winning records against both of them. Of course, given what happened in the NHL, Corey, Ryan was inevitably asked whether Boston might be an appealing opponent. He sidestepped reporters on that one and he said, hey, I thought the Leafs played really well, so deftly done, Coach Ryan.
Well, coaching a hockey team is hard enough. Now you got to choose your opponent. Like, I don't know, that's tough.
Yeah, it's just immediate locker room fodder, which is the reason they're doing this in this league. I mean,
100%.
I love what the PWHL is doing, right?
Love
Like
it.
innovative rules left, right, and center.
Yeah, and then just a little extra drama. I don't mind at all, as a fan at least. Yeah.
Nope.
Well, finally, it was also a big weekend for prospective Canadian Olympians. Tell us about that.
Yeah, a disappointing weekend in the end in 3-on-3 basketball for Canada, Corey. It was a narrow loss to the Australians yesterday, in which the Canadians could have directly qualified for the Olympics, and led by the twin sisters, Catherine and Michelle Plouffe from Edmonton. They're the top-ranked team in the world. So they get one more chance at a tournament in about a week in Hungary. Meanwhile, a slew of relay teams qualified for Paris, led by Andre de Grasse and the men's 4x100 team. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting in Paris. Just let's see the men step up a little more. Remember, in Tokyo at the last games, 75% of this country's medals were won by women.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Scott.
You betcha.
That is Scott Reguer with your morning sports. Time now for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's a bright start to your Monday morning. We're at 9 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. We'll see some clouds roll in this afternoon, and that wind is going to pick up to gusting southeast 40 to 60. Warm today, a high of 22. Some Manitoba towns are taking rural doctor recruitment into their own hands. With emergency rooms forced to close, they see it as the only way to make sure people in their area get the care they need. CBC's Josh Crabb reports.
Healthcare is a hot topic at a cafe in Killarney. Manager Marlon Tripp is among those concerned.
Right now we are in a doctor shortage.
The town takes a hands-on approach to the problem. Mayor Janice Smith says they've hired a recruitment firm to find more physicians, even though healthcare falls under provincial jurisdiction.
That has been the age-old question. This is not a municipal responsibility.
Hamiota and Glenborough have also hired Waterford Global to find physicians. Prairie Mountain Health CEO Trina Slate says it has agreed to split the cost of between $90,000 and $150,000 per doctor with communities.
We've had to explore sort of every avenue possible.
The health region is short around 80 doctors. Manitoba's health minister says the government is working with health authorities to recruit more physicians, but with the province struggling, communities say they have no choice but to get involved too. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Killarney.
Hundreds of Manitobans gathered at the Forks yesterday, marking Red Dress Day. People with connections to missing Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people recounting stories of their loved ones before the annual Walk for Justice. Louise Minow was there to honor her niece Grace, who was killed by a drunk driver last year, and her childhood friend Hillary Angel Wilson, whose body was found in Winnipeg in 2009.
I was scared to move to the city after that. I've been in Winnipeg now for over 10 years. And it's still safe to say that I am definitely not safe. Wherever I go, I'm always going to be a target, right? Just by being an Indigenous woman.
Meanwhile, Manitoba is creating a $15 million fund to help the families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls heal. That fund will be managed by the Winnipeg Foundation and will take contributions from anyone who wants to help. The province says it wants to invest $750,000 in the fund every year. Myrna Abraham says the money would have helped her family when her sister Sharon went missing in 2004.
It'll help with families that are now looking for for their families. It really helps with financial relief, which is basically the most stress when you're searching.
The program is set to launch next year. A warning this morning about being careful around all waterways in spring. A person was rescued from the Assiniboine River near the Donald Street Bridge last evening. Fire paramedics crews found a person being pulled by the current towards the junction with the Red River. That person now is listed as critical. The fire paramedic service reminds people waterways can be hazardous this time of year, and they ask parents to talk to your children about the dangers of very cold, fast-moving water. The Israeli military is telling Palestinians to begin evacuating eastern Rafah. A statement from the IDF calls for the movement of at least 100,000 people, suggesting a long-anticipated ground invasion of Rafah is imminent. Israel says the displaced are being urged to move to what is being called an expanded humanitarian zone. That zone is set to contain field hospitals, tents, and food. It is estimated at least 1.4 million people currently are located inside Rafah. Now, Canada's spy agency warns the Israel-Hamas war has led to a spike in violent rhetoric from extremists that could inspire others to turn to violence. The Canadian Security Intelligence Service says it is clear this conflict has raised tensions in Canadian society. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. The daughter of a missing senior with dementia is calling for a review of his disappearance. Earl Moberg was last seen in December last year when he went out walking in North Kildonan. His daughter, Britt, says she has contacted the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. She believes her father's disappearance meets the criteria of a critical incident.
My father, at this point, he is presumed to be deceased, although we haven't found his body. We know that it wasn't a natural death, and we know wandering is a common progression of that illness, but it doesn't need to result in somebody dying from that.
Moberg is also calling for a change in the Silver Alert system. It notifies the public about missing vulnerable adults. She wants the alert to go to people's cell phones in the area where the person went missing. And clear skies for WestJet and its mechanics union after reaching a tentative deal to avoid a potential strike. Around 670 unionized engineers and skilled trade workers still need to ratify the deal. WestJet had issued a 72-hour lockout notice on Saturday. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News Desk. Well, 7:36 right now. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa, and let's take a look at your regional forecast with Abby Adiemi.
Good morning once again. Starting off in Winnipeg, it's currently 9 degrees with the sun greeting us this morning. As the day progresses, we will see those clouds roll in and the winds will pick up gusting near noon, and we will warm up to a high of 22. Moving west to Brandon, it is 7 degrees right now. It's partly cloudy, and we will be seeing a mix of sun and clouds today with a chance of showers later in the afternoon, heading for a high of 18. Heading north to Thompson, it is 2 degrees and mostly cloudy. We're looking at a mix of sun and clouds for the day, a high of 17. Up north in Churchill, it's chilly at -1, mostly cloudy. Today is going to be bringing cloudy skies with a chance of light snow and freezing drizzle this morning, and temperatures will be reaching +1. Down in Dauphin, it is a pleasant 8 degrees with sunny skies, and it's also clear. You're going to be enjoying a mix of sun and clouds for folks out there, and the clouds will definitely roll in later in the afternoon. You'll get to a comfortable 19 degrees. In Gimli, it is 8 degrees. The Interlake region can expect mainly sunny skies with some clouds rolling in later in the day, and the forecasted high is 20. Steinbach is currently at 10 degrees. Today's forecast includes mainly sunny conditions with increasing cloudiness in the afternoon and a high of 22. And finally in Morris, where it's sitting at 8 degrees, the Pembina Valley region expects some clouds to roll in throughout the day and the temperatures reaching 22. But in Winnipeg, we're starting the day with some sunshine and ending with lots of cloud and a chance of showers tonight. But tomorrow is going to be bringing more of like a mix of sun and cloud. And today we're warming up to a high of 22.
Thank you very much, Abby.
You're welcome.
That is Abby Adiemi. Keeping an eye on the weather. Your commute so far has been pretty straightforward. We did get a call on the commuter line from someone who said that the river trail on the Assiniboine River path after the Donald Street bridge is almost unbikeable. It's pretty mucky, watery. So keep an eye out for that if you are planning to bike down the river trail today. Other than that, things seem to be running pretty smooth. But if you see something going on, give me a call. Give not me actually today. It's actually May McKillop. You can give her a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093. Well, next up on the show, the potential ban of TikTok in the U.S. is causing concern among some users and influencers. here in Canada. U.S. President Joe Biden signed a bill into legislation last month that gives TikTok's parent company ByteDance two choices. They can either sell to an American company or face a U.S. ban. And so far, TikTok has said they will not sell despite the potential ban. Now there's some uncertainty about what this could mean for Canadian influencers. And Lauren Hauer is a Winnipeg book talker, also known as a book influencer on TikTok. She's got 245,000 followers. And as I went to go pull her from the green room into the studio, she was, of course, reading a book. Hi there, Lauren.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, like what I understand, this is your like full-time thing, right?
Oh yeah, this is my full-time job.
Yeah, and how long have you been doing this full-time for?
Since 2021. It hasn't been my full-time job since 2021, but in the last year, it became, my full-time job. This is what I do for a living.
Wow. So then how did you feel when you heard about this potential TikTok ban in the U.S.?
It's really scary just because there's so much uncertainty, and the banning might not happen for months and months, but because it's happening in the U.S., it's, just so unclear how it's going to affect Canadian residents and people that make a living off of TikTok in Canada. It's scary.
Right. So let's say hypothetically there is this TikTok ban. So this would mean you would use all of your, American. Do you know how much percentage of your followers are American? Do you have access to that kind of data?
Oh yeah, you have access as a TikTok user to, if you make content on the app, you have access to all of the demographics that view your content, your entire viewership. You can see their ages, where they live. Yeah, so I think it's almost half of the people that keep up with the content that I make. There would be half of those that are U.S. residents. And in India, when TikTok was banned there, those accounts weren't deleted. They still exist and they're still up, but they're kind of like these ghost accounts that are inaccessible to the owners of the accounts, but the accounts are still up.
So would this mean then for your bottom line? Because I actually understand Canadians aren't paid on TikTok the same way Americans are. So you can tell me about how that works?
Yeah, so in the United States, there's something called the TikTok Creator Fund. And so U.S. residents get paid per views on TikTok, whereas in Canada, we just don't have that at all. And so when you make a living on TikTok in Canada, it's all just from sponsored content that you make on the app. So a brand will reach out to us and then you make an ad for them, essentially. So it could be like a shower head company, or I personally really enjoy when it's a book that I get to promote.
Right.
Those ones feel a little more, it's like a seamless integration.
So you've had to somehow plug, like, when I'm not reading a book, I like this shower head.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You have to get creative with it.
I'm sure.
But that's how Canadian residents who make a living off of TikTok are making a living. But in the US, it's very different. So because people get paid per views, really anybody can make a living off of TikTok. You don't have to have a manager finding sponsorships for you. It's kind of like the average person can make a living off of this app.
Wow. So you actually have to have a manager as one of your business expenses to help you get these sponsorships.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So then now I'm thinking, if this ban goes ahead and you now can't say that you tell advertisers now your views are cut in half or your followers are cut in half. What's that going to mean for trying to get these sponsors?
Well, it's really interesting because now all of these users or all of these creators in the United States, they will potentially disappear. And so that means that all of those sponsors that would be going to them could potentially start coming to Canadian creators, or they'll want to move away from TikTok entirely. Like brands might not even want to advertise on TikTok because so much viewership is gone. And so that could mean really big things for Instagram and Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts, which are kind of like the equivalent of TikToks just on other apps.
So you're kind of in this limbo period right now, right? Where you're kind of like, how much, so what are you doing to plan or if you do need to pivot at all, if this ban happens?
I do make videos on YouTube, and then I make some content on Instagram, but all of these apps have very different cultures. So the things that perform well on TikTok don't necessarily perform well on Instagram. And then YouTube, it's like an entirely different game because videos are just so much longer on YouTube, aside from the shorts. But yeah, TikTok, it's such a unique place. And yeah, it's...
And is that where most of your revenue comes from, is TikTok, compared to the other places, or no?
It's about 50-50 between TikTok and YouTube, and then Instagram is not a particularly profitable app. Just it's very kind of oversaturated. Like everyone can be an influencer on Instagram. It's just been around for a really long time.
Right. And what are you hearing from fellow influencers on TikTok right now? Are they similarly worried, or are they even worried at all? They're just like, this is just a thing. It'll pass by.
I think they're maybe a little. We're all kind of in denial at the moment, just because everything is so up in the air, and there has been talk about potentially having to pivot to Instagram and just kind of leave TikTok behind if that becomes necessary. But I think everyone would be doing it kind of begrudgingly, and yeah, it would. I think ultimately people would just end up moving over to Instagram.
Is there ever it passed through your mind that you just might need to go find another job, or is it this is it for you?
I'm actually going to be taking some publishing courses in the fall, and hopefully will have a more stable job in publishing in the future. I hope to not work in social media forever. It's a funny business.
Yeah, what is that like, in terms of what you put out there and versus, what it is to actually be an influencer? Is it like, what's the hustle like? What was it, is it 8-hour days, 9-10-hour days? What is that like?
It's kind of, you're sort of working all the time because you essentially have to sell your personality. You as a person are the brand. And so, yeah, you kind of just work 24 hours a day and constantly have to be thinking about new content that you're putting out. And I have to schedule time like 40 minutes to like an hour and a half a day where I sit and I just scroll through videos because you have to keep up with what's kind of trending. And I mean, that's a very easy part of the job, just passively scrolling social media, but it's a big part of it.
But tiring too, right? I mean, is there almost a little, like you said, you're kind of slowly kind of shifting away eventually to a more like classic job. Would it almost be a relief if you're forced to pivot like
Honestly,
this?
yes. Yeah, I would hope in the next 3 to 5 years, I would like to delete all social media and not have to do it at all. It's very emotionally exhausting, and you're kind of ultimately, at the end of the day, if you are a full-time influencer, your job is selling people product, and that becomes like, it's kind of soul-sucking.
and is that a similar sentiment among other influencers like yourself? Is everyone else like, okay, this has run its course, like let's move on to something else, or is this mostly just you?
I think a lot of influencers do feel this way, especially as they get into their like late 20s, early 30s. It's sort of an industry that you have to be young and spry to really thrive in, and then yeah, it just becomes, it's tiring.
Right. But you told me a little bit before the mics turned on that you were still a little hopeful that this ban won't happen
Yes.
at all. But what's kind of influencing that?
Yeah, I am very hopeful that it will not happen because I think that the community that you can create online is so invaluable. And even if I wasn't creating content on social media, I guess I shouldn't say that I would just delete all of the apps, but I would definitely take a step back and not be as present on those platforms because I would still love to consume all the media that other book creators make. And that's ultimately why I got into this job, because I just liked watching book content online.
Right. How much time do you spend scrolling versus reading?
Oh my God. I don't even want to think about that. Probably, I don't know. Oh, that's so awful to think about.
So maybe if this ban does come and you're forced to pivot, you'll actually maybe have more time to read, ironically.
I hope so. Yeah, that actually could be good for me.
Well, Lauren, thanks so much for joining us this morning and kind of giving us some insight into how things work behind the scenes and the business of being an TikTok influencer. Really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
That's Lauren Hauer, a local book talker for now. You can catch her on, you can follow her on TikTok at Big Book Lady if you want to see her there.
There are many people who bring success, innovation, accomplishment, and charity to our community. We'd like you to help us meet some of the best. CBC Future 40 will honor 10 Manitobans under 40 making a difference. Help us discover the inspiring people in our province by nominating a shining star in your community today. For details, visit cbc.ca/future40mb.
Well, time now is 7:49 here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Right now at the Forks, we are slowly but surely heating up 9 degrees right now. We are heading for a high of 22 here in Winnipeg. Well, in honor of Indigenous Nurses Day today, we want to highlight the work of a nurse who's Ojibwe with roots in Poplar River First Nation. Today, Jenny Russell works in harm reduction in the Street Connections van on the streets of Winnipeg. But as you'll hear, she was already interested in healthcare as a kid. CBC host Marcy Marcusa recently spoke with her on Zoom.
Good morning.
So what made you want to be a nurse, Jenny?
I've had a lot of different experiences with the healthcare system from the time I was small. When I was younger, I actually was a candy striper at the Grace Hospital. And I'm talking about when they used to wear the red and white stripes and it said candy striper across your apron. So I've always been interested in healthcare. Things kind of fell off the rails a little bit for me. And then I ended up pursuing nursing later on in my life after I had kids and I went through a divorce and I decided to go back to school. So I'm really happy that I did it. I just wanted to represent healthcare to people who don't often get that representation.
I know you've been a nurse now since 2019, so 5 years you've been a nurse. Why did you want to specifically work in harm reduction?
I've had a lot of experiences in my life with people who do use drugs, who have had a lot of barriers to access healthcare, and a lot of poor outcomes for them. So I think it's really important that everybody gets safe and non-judgmental access to healthcare. It doesn't matter what you're doing, if you're using drugs, if you aren't. I think everybody deserves a safe place to access healthcare.
And when we say that to you having a representative workforce is important, what do you mean by representation in nursing?
I think it's important that Indigenous people are represented. There's a very big Indigenous population in Manitoba. So I think it's really important that there are Indigenous nurses, doctors, and healthcare workers out there that represent the population.
What kind of a difference does that make with the patient-to-patient relationship if the patient is Indigenous and the healthcare worker or nurse, in your case, is Indigenous as well?
I think it's really helpful for building strong and trusting relationships in healthcare. I feel like we offer like a safe place for people who often feel judged in healthcare, and just being able to relate to people, having lived experience, I think is really important too in the work that we do. It's not like any education you could ever get in school. Lived experience is something that I think is really helpful for relating to people in a healthcare setting.
I love the way you frame that. People that often can feel judged in healthcare. It's the last place that you would want to feel judged when you're reaching out because you need help with your health, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What more, in your view, needs to be done to improve harm reduction since it's an area you work directly in?
I really think that more accessibility to harm reduction supplies. People don't always live Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 job, like 9 to 5 lives. Do you know what I mean? Not everybody is working banking hours. Not everybody has that lifestyle. I think it's really important for people to be able to access harm reduction supplies at the ready when they need it, because it could be any time. So that's why we're out on the streets, and we're usually out on the streets till about 11 o'clock at night. But I really think if they let us, if we were out till 3 o'clock, I'm sure we'd be just as busy, so I think that's really important for people. I think people being educated about harm reduction and kind of destigmatizing it is really important. It's basically letting people be who they are in a safer way. And we just want people to be as safe and healthy as possible, whatever they're doing.
What does the day mean to you, Indigenous Nurses Day?
I think it's really important to celebrate all the amazing people that I work with, to celebrate with my community. We actually have 2 Indigenous team managers here in public health, which I think is fabulous. And we actually have 3 Indigenous designated positions here at Healthy Sexuality and Harm Reduction. And I think it's a great start. And I think that needs to be celebrated. We're doing things, we're going in the right direction. And I just want to keep that momentum.
Appreciate you, Jenny Russell. Thank you very much for the conversation today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Jenny Russell is Ojibwe with roots in Poplar River First Nation. She was speaking with CBC's Marcy Marcusa. She works in harm reduction in the Street Connections van in Winnipeg. And do you want to shout out someone for Indigenous Nurse Day? Or how about a nurse for Nursing Week? You can call our listener line at 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205. 7:56 right now here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Fung in for Marcy Marcusa. Let's take a look at news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, hundreds of Manitobans gathered at the Forks yesterday marking Red Dress Day and the annual Walk for Justice. Louise Minow was there to honor her niece Grace, who was killed by a drunk driver last year, and her childhood friend Hillary Angel Wilson, whose body was found in Winnipeg in 2009. She says she is not safe in Winnipeg and always feels like a target because she is an Indigenous woman. We'll hear more about Red Dress Day coming up. As well, a person is in critical condition after being rescued from the Assiniboine River near the Donald Street Bridge last evening. Fire paramedics crews found a person being pulled by the strong current towards the junction with the Red River. They are now warning people to stay away from waterways in the spring and to talk to your children about the dangers of cold, fast-moving water. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News desk. Well, still to come on the show, a Transcona resident is frustrated. She says her back lane is complete mud and rocks, and she cannot access her garage. It's an issue that she says happens when city crews do maintenance. We're going to hear what she's asking the city to do coming up after 8:10. And in the meantime, you can call us. We're curious about what your back lane is looking like these days. We talk about roads all the time, but those back lanes, we don't really get much updates on. So you can give us a call, tell us about your back lane. Maybe you love it. Maybe you're like, my back lane is the best back lane in the city. Or maybe you think it's the worst. Tell us about it. Give us a call on the CBC listener line, 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205. And speaking of roads, we've gotten one call on the commuter line so far from someone who says that the river trail along the Assiniboine, once you get past west of the Donald Street Bridge, it's virtually unbikeable. It's mucky, it's muddy, not a great bike ride overall. So just heads up if you are planning to head out on two wheels down the river trail today or even later on. Hopefully things will dry up there. Give us a call on our commuter line if you see something, 204-788-3093. May McKillop will be picking up the line to take your calls. Well, also, beautiful day out there. 9 degrees right now at the Forks, heading for a high of 22. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. If you want to see what this radio show looks like, you can also tune in on our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'll see you after World Report.
Q with Tom Power. Carly Fortune wrote a romance novel she thought no one would ever see, and now 2 bestsellers later, she's about to publish her 3rd one. Carly will tell you why she doesn't shy away from themes of depression and anxiety in her book, and working with Meghan Markle on a screen adaptation.
I felt like it was going to be in really good hands.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion finally opened this month after years of controversy, cost overruns, and delays. Dawn Farrell, the CEO of the government-owned infrastructure project, is here to defend that pipeline, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Israel's military is telling people to evacuate eastern parts of Rafah. The IDF says it needs to move about 100,000 people to carry out an operation against Hamas. It is telling them to go to an expanded humanitarian zone. James Elders with UNICEF, he told the BBC those areas are uninhabitable.
Well, there's nowhere to go. Khan Yunis, let's be clear, is rubble. It's not a little bit destroyed, it's utterly devastated. Derry Bulla in the middle area, that's now got raw sewage running through the streets because the sanitation has just been devastated. And Al Mawasi is a beach. We've already had reports of children dying of dehydration. So when we're told of people should move to humanitarian zones, that's a terrifying irony when humanitarians aren't working in these zones.
About 1.4 million Palestinians are crammed into Rafah right now. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says military action is necessary because Hamas has not agreed to a ceasefire deal. Gil Dickman's cousin is being held by Hamas.
Now we're very much afraid as families of hostages that the IDF entering Rafah will risk the lives not only of innocent people, not only of soldiers, but also of some hostages who might be risked because of the attack on Rafah.
A senior Hamas official tells AFP news agency ceasefire negotiations will continue. The public safety minister says a foreign influence registry is coming. The legislation could be introduced as early as today in the House of Commons. It follows the arrests of 3 men on Friday in connection with the murder of a Sikh activist. A murder Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says involved the Indian government. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. Janice, how is a registry for foreign influence expected to help?
Marcia, critics have wanted this in place for years. This would not be a registry of foreign citizens in Canada. It's more akin to a lobbyist registry, a way to track those who advocate, seek to influence decisions and events in legal ways on behalf of other countries. But also, it would enable punishment for those who overstep and engage in covert interference operations. Here's Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc.
It's about bolstering Canada's ability to detect and disrupt foreign interference. And this is important to rebuild Canadians' confidence in our democratic institutions.
MPs from all parties held a news conference last week with diaspora groups and signaled they're prepared to work together to get this registry passed and in place quickly. We've also been waiting for some reforms to the CSIS Act to bolster the capabilities of intelligence agencies. It's unclear how much of that's going to be in this same bill as the registry, but the minister hinted that the government's set to move on both.
But first, parliamentarians will discuss a private member's motion. Tell us about that.
Yeah, interesting and strategic timing here. The first hour of debate this morning features a private member's motion from BC Liberal Sukh Dhaliwal, calling on the government to review its measures to ensure that diaspora communities are protected from acts of political interference and violence. Sikhs in Canada acknowledge they're not the only community in danger, but the events of the last year makes everything more urgent. Here's Maninder Singh from the BC Sikh Gurdwara Council.
The one thing we do know is India is the only foreign actor at the moment that is basically coming down to that point where they've killed a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil.
The next phase of the commissioners' hearings this fall are going to probe what more government and security agencies can do.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. Panama is welcoming a new president today. Jose Raul Molino was the country's former interior minister. Molino won the general election with 35% of the vote. Many Panamanians are looking to Molino to boost the country's economy. There's also hope he'll restore trust in the government. Massive protests were staged last year over a contract awarded to a Canadian-owned copper mine. Freelance journalist Manuel Rueda has more from Panama City.
In a country facing sharp divisions, Jose Raul Molino cast himself as the unity candidate. Running on a pro-business, right-of-center platform, Molino says the country needs to honor its debts while not forgetting the poor. The recently elected president has promised to shut down the transit of migrants headed to the United States, a move that will score points with Washington. You have to trust me, he said in his victory speech. We will soon reveal our plans to energize the economy. His promises include investing in infrastructure projects and building a new university. But that will be an uphill battle. Last year, Panama shut down a Canadian-owned copper mine that produced 4% of the nation's GDP. The decision followed massive protests by environmental groups and others who were alarmed by a contract that renewed the mine's concession for 2 decades. Miguel Antonio Bernal, a political analyst in Panama City, says that many people perceived it as a corrupt deal.
What we have here in Panama is a heavy concentration of economic power, heavy concentration of the political power, and a social situation that hurt a lot of people in this country.
Molino has not said how he will deal with the mine, where operations remain suspended. Manuel Rueda for CBC News, Panama City, Panama.
Donald Trump will be back in a New York courtroom today. The former U.S. president's hush money trial is in its 4th week. Prosecutors are hoping to build off the emotional testimony of Trump's former aide, who was on the stand last week. Chris Glover is monitoring the trial for us from Washington. And Chris, who are we expecting to hear from next?
Well, that is one of many interesting things about this trial. Prosecutors haven't been revealing who they'll call next, but 2 critical witnesses are still to testify. First, Stormy Daniels. She's the adult film actress who was paid to keep quiet just ahead of the 2016 election about an alleged affair with Trump, an affair that, to be clear, Trump denies. And second, Michael Cohen, Trump's former attorney, who says he coordinated those hush money payments. And we're also expecting some witnesses to walk the court through financial records, because remember, at the end of the day, Trump stands accused of falsifying business records related to those payments.
And Chris, what about the gag orders? Could Trump face any more penalties?
Yeah, certainly he could. Justice Juan Marchand considering 4 more potential gag order violations by Trump, who's not allowed to disparage jurors or witnesses in the trial. Now, earlier last week, Marchand held Trump in contempt of court and fined him $9,000 for 9 previous violations. And while Trump awaits the decision, he appears to be changing course. I want you to listen to an exchange he had with a reporter leaving court on Friday.
What was it like seeing home kids again?
So I'm not allowed to comment on any of that. As you know, I'm under a gag order.
Especially significant here because the judge is warning that future violations could land Trump in jail. Though with these 4 potential violations already under his review, prosecutors have said they are not requesting jail time, but one of many interesting things to watch for.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
The CBC's Chris Glover in Washington. In northern New Brunswick, a community is struggling to rebuild its economy. A paper mill, chemical operation, and power plant all closed down in Dalhousie. A new mine has been proposed for the area, but as Alexander Silberman tells us, the plan doesn't sit well with some residents.
between the trail and the sea, you have this geological formation.
Inside a vast quarry in New Brunswick's northernmost town, Régent Carrier looks up at towering walls of an ashen gray volcanic rock called pozzolan. The president of Quebec-based Carbonic hopes to turn the site in Dalhousie into an open pit mine, selling the material as a low-carbon alternative for cement production.
It will bring good job in the area.
That promise of jobs is being embraced by some residents, with talk of hundreds of people during construction and 168 permanent positions. The federal government is also supporting the project with $1.2 million for a geological survey. But some residents fear a large mine in a residential area could be harmful.
My problem is yes, it's jobs, but a job at what expense?
Gail Farron says she wants more information about noise, pollution, and other potential risks.
The industries that left, they left at least a flat piece of property, whereas this project is going to leave a scar in the landscape.
Mayor Normand Pelletier says the community is divided and developers have a responsibility to consult with the public.
So we're kind of anxious to hear the company and how they're going to promote it.
The companies behind the project say they expect to share a detailed plan with the public by the end of the year. Alexander Silperman, CBC News, Dalhousie, New Brunswick.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa, and you're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. It's going to be a gorgeous, gorgeous Monday. Well, coming up this half hour on the show, what does your back lane look like?
But I want to tell you that my back lane's horrible. It's a big pothole around a manhole, and I've called the city many times. I've even put my own sandbags and my own pylons around it a few times. They came and put a little bit of black tar, but then it just sank back in. People hit it with their cars all the time. Probably causes tons of damage. It's been 2 years, nothing gets done. And there's a lot of back lanes I drive down while I'm working, and they're just horrible.
That's a call we got from a listener. It's prompted by a story we have coming just ahead. A Transcona resident is frustrated. She says her back lane is complete mud and rocks and she cannot access her garage. It's an issue she says happens when city crews do maintenance. We're going to hear what she has to say and what she's asking the city to do. That's coming up here on Information Radio. But first, let's take a look at news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, some southwest Manitoba towns are paying a recruiting firm six-figure sums to find doctors. Hamiota and Glenborough are following Killarney's lead in hiring a firm to find doctors for their hospitals. It costs between $90,000 and $150,000 per doctor. We'll hear more about that. And Manitoba is creating a $15 million fund to help families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls heal. It'll be managed by the Winnipeg Foundations and will take contributions from anyone who wants to help. The program, announced as part of Red Dress Day, is expected to launch next year. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
That's Heather Wells at our CBC News Desk. Abby Adiemi, what kind of day is ahead? Looks like a gorgeous one, I think.
Yeah, I'll tell you the forecast ahead. Brace yourself for a day filled with sunshine and a touch of clouds. The sun will definitely be our faithful companion, gracing us with mainly sunny skies across the province and in the city. We're currently at 12 degrees, and don't let that sunbeam deceive you, because as the day progresses, we're expecting those clouds to roll in gradually, especially by the afternoon period. So keep an eye out for the winds that's also going to be joining the party, picking up speed southeast by noon. And as we say goodbye to the day, getting to the night period, the clouds will definitely take over the skyline. Possible showers, a bit of rain. So if you're planning a night out, just be sure to be prepared. The temperature is going to be deep into 12 degrees. And if we look ahead to tomorrow, it's a mixed bag. We're going to get sun and clouds to start the day, and then by midway, those clouds will gather together and a few showers might make an appearance, making the high a comfy 17 degrees. Brandon is currently 10 degrees. Thompson is at 3 degrees. Churchill is at -1. Duffin, Gimli, Steinbach, Morris, and Definitely, the south is all hovering around 9s and 10 degrees as we speak, but in the city, we're heading to a high of 22.
It's almost the perfect day. I've got my first outdoor ultimate game of the season today. Shout out to everyone with their on Monday Night Ultimate. If that wind wasn't there though, we'll see how that goes. I forget how to throw a frisbee as it is, so we'll see.
I just look on the bright side. The wind is something that would cool you down as the heat does its thing, because you're going to be, getting sweaty and all of that during the game.
Abby, always looking on the bright side. I appreciate it. Thanks, man. Well, let's take one quick look at your commute. It's really been very quiet all morning. We've gotten one call though on the commuter line from someone who says if you're just biking along the river trail along the Assiniboine, if you're heading west, just west of the Donald Street Bridge, it actually gets pretty mucky and gross and pretty unbikeable overall. So just heads up if you do plan to bike down the river trail today, that part might be a little treacherous for your two wheels there. So keep an eye out for that. If you do see something though, Mae McKillop is standing by to take your calls. You can give her a call on our commuter line 204-788-3093. Well, spring can always get a little bit muddy, but in Transcona, there's a back lane that can give the river trail maybe a run for its money. Navigating through potholes can be tough enough, but imagine trying to drive through thick mud to get access to your garage. Chelsea Paycheck says her back lane is complete mud and riddled with craters. She blames the mess from recent work done by the city of Winnipeg. She says the lane has made it impossible to navigate with her vehicle, and the back lane in question is, if you're wondering, on the 400 block of Region. And Chelsea joins us now via Zoom. Hello there, Chelsea.
Hi.
So can you just start by describing what your back lane looks like right now?
It's just complete mud. and yeah, it's just mud and ruts. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you sent some pictures along to us, and I took a look. There's a truck, and it's in a rut, and you can only see about maybe half of its tire. It's like it's in there deep. So what's been your experience, driving down? Like, is it actually, impassable, would you say?
Yeah, so if you come from the one way, it's impossible. If you come from the other way, but it's right in front of my garage and my neighbor's garage. And it is impossible. It's caused damage to vehicles. Me and my neighbor are not even parking in our garage anymore. Yeah.
And what do you know about how it got this way?
It's just the city's not maintaining it. So, and then they just grade it. So they'll just go over it. It'll push the gravel to the side. And then now it's just mud. There's not even any more gravel that's on top. Mm-hmm. So
your back lane itself, it's never been paved. It's always been kind of a gravel back lane as it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So your vehicle itself, has your vehicle seen any damage? You said you've seen some vehicles get it, but what about yours?
Yes. I was driving my fiance's car and unfortunately cracked the bumper because when it rained, I could not see like all the bumps and different things in the mud, and the tire went completely in and cracked the bumper.
So when you emailed us to kind of tell us your story, you said that you've contacted 311. What's the city told you since you've reached out?
So I contacted them the time before. They came out on last Monday just to grade the top of it. It did absolutely nothing. When we got that rain for a couple days there, I reached out again and I explained the situation, sent more pictures to them. And they told me that because they've already came this time of year, they won't be coming till fall.
Okay, so it's just at this point, from your understanding, you believe that this will just be how it is for the summer for you.
Yeah, at this point, yeah, because when you ask, there's nothing that you guys can do, they don't give you any kind of information. They say, oh, we'll escalate this, but I haven't heard anything, and it's been 5 days, so
okay.
they really didn't.
Mm-hmm. And your back lane, like I know some back lanes are paved in Winnipeg. In Transcona itself, in the area, are a lot of the back lanes like yours? Is this a common thing to just be gravel and just have people go and grading? And are those back lanes kind of similar to yours in terms of the conditions they're in?
No, I was kind of like, so the in Mid-Transcona, yes, there is more gravel back lanes, I would say. But I was kind of just driving around the area just to see other back lanes, and it doesn't look muddy, like complete mud where you cannot access your garage. Um, Maybe like it's still really bad, don't get me wrong, like with potholes and like I can't imagine how they're maneuvering that too. But the mud is just what is really like ruining vehicles and yeah.
So what would you, in an ideal world, what would you like to see done to get this fixed?
I would love it to be paved, to be honest, so we don't have to do this every little while so that like in my back lane, people are literally buying, or my neighbors are buying gravel and putting it on the road, and that is not their responsibility. So I would love for it to be paved. And if it can't be paved, then at least like quarter down and pack down properly.
And is this like a seasonal thing for you? Like, is this something you have to bring up with the city or is this year particularly bad for you?
No, so this is an every year type of thing. This year is particularly bad because of all the rain at first. But it's still really bad. It's just, it'll affect us in different ways, like say, more potholes or, you know what I mean? Like it'll kind of affect us in different ways. So, yeah.
And, if this isn't cleaned up, you said it's been about 5 days since you've reached out in the next little while, if it does take till fall, what does that kind of mean for you?
If it doesn't, we won't have access to like we already are not parking in our garage. So, and that's our main door. So we just like we're literally walking around the block or going in our front door. We just won't have access, and it's gonna cause damage more to more vehicles, and yeah, like just don't have access. And it sucks because we have a garage. That's why we bought our house, for the security of our vehicles, different things, and we can't even use it.
Well, Chelsea, thanks so much for joining us this morning and sharing your story.
Yes, thank you.
That's Chelsea Paycheck. She's a Transcona resident concerned about the mud unpacked in her back lane in the 400 block of Region. We reached out to the city of Winnipeg for comment, and a spokesperson said the city has been looking into these concerns. We are expecting a response later today.
Mega laughs, mega shows recorded for CBC Gem, and at least 5 comedians per show. That's mega value for your money. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival is back April 30th to May 5th, and CBC is a proud sponsor. Catch Canadian performers Anne Pornell from The Great Canadian Baking Show, Lauren Ash from Superstore, and live tapings of The Debaters. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival, uplifting Canadian comedy. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
I would want to give a shout out because I know that it did wrap up yesterday, the comedy show, the CBC, or the sponsored, the comedy festival, Winnipeg Comedy Festival, sponsored by CBC. And because we actually had on our, if you remember last week, we actually had our 2 listeners who phoned in with their mom jokes. And I hear reports that they went and performed on the debater stage, their mom jokes, Daphne and Deborah. And they killed it. They cleaned up, I hear. So congrats to them for standing up, facing their fears, telling their mom jokes on stage in front of hundreds of people before a live taping of the debaters. So congrats to you, and thanks for calling in with your mum jokes. Well, let's kick off your Monday with a bit of music here. Drew Holcomb and Donovan Woods are currently out on tour in the American Midwest. And before heading out together, they figured they'd better have something to sing together on the road. And they came up with this song, which is all about coming to terms with the things we'll never fully understand. This is Drew Holcomb and Donovan Woods with For Some Reason.
For some reason, kids are afraid of the dark. For some reason, we're hypnotized by the stars. For some reason, we wanna grow up too soon. For some reason, some of us have to. For some reason, the camera doesn't tell the truth. For some reason, we're we're uncomfortable in our own shoes. For some reason, life starts to feel like a barroom fight. For some reason, we're never quite ready to say goodbye. I can't get enough of you, babe. I'll never get enough of you, babe. For some reason, someday I'll have to. Sing always in too soon. And what that means is I always want more and I always want to. For some reason we all wish for a simpler time. And while we're dreaming, life sneaks by like a thief in the night. But I can't get enough of you, babe. I can't, I'll never get enough of you, babe. I can't get enough of you, babe. I can't, I'll never get enough of you. Someday I'll have to. For some reason, someday I'll have to.
That's Drew Holcomb and Donovan Woods with their joint single, For Some Reason.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
8:26 right now here on Information Radio, and I am in the studio graced by the presence of Janet Stewart.
You're too kind.
Host of Radio Noon, and I understand you're talking emergency preparedness.
I am talking emergency preparedness. You know that on Radio Noon now we have a call-in segment in the second half hour of the program from 12:30 roughly to 1 o'clock roughly. We turn the topic over to you, basically, and we ask you to contribute on whatever the given topic of the day is. Today we have an emergency preparedness expert with us. She runs a consulting firm, and it's incredible the stuff she knows. She's one of the people who helps train all the municipalities in Manitoba for emergency preparedness. So, great, you're training the governments, but what do we individuals need to know?
And spring is around that time of year where you got to start thinking about it. I mean, there's always those chances of floods, fires, things like that. So
what's in your go bag?
What
about the go bag for the seniors you take care of?
Oh no,
for your neighbors, for like kids.
Well, now you
right? So don't panic, because Shelley's going to help us all calm down and just know.
Yeah.
So that, because unfortunately with the more extreme weather we're having, with the smoke even that comes down from some forest fires, sometimes it's you might be in a community that could be
right. You think it's not going to be you till it is, isn't it? That's how it works.
That's the thing. So what do? How do you guide people who you love by phone on what they have to grab? Whatever it is, she's going to help us get ready for it. And we want your questions. What do you worry about? What is it that you're concerned with? What is it you think you should change?
Yeah. How can people reach out?
Give us a call. Well, we're going to open the phone lines live at 12:30. But if you want to leave a message now, story of what you did, how it helped, 204 788-3797 is our Radio Noon listener line, and that's something you can leave a message for us anytime.
Oh, well, Janet, thank you very much. Looking forward to it. I'm directing the show today, so we'll hang up.
Oh, fun. All right.
That is Janet Stewart, host of Radio Noon. Well, still ahead here on CBC Radio 1. You want to stay tuned for Q. Carly Fortune, the Canadian author behind New York Times bestsellers like Every Summer After and Meet Me at the Lake, which is now being adapted by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle for Netflix. Carly drops by the Q studio to talk about writing her new book. This summer will be different, leaving journalism to pursue being a novelist and why the romance genre is having a moment right now. That's on Q coming up this morning at 10 o'clock. I wonder if the TikToker, book talker we had on earlier would review that or something like that. Sounds like a good book. Well, you're listening to the Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk. In for Marcy Marcusa. We still want to stay tuned. We're going to keep you updated on your news, your weather, and your traffic coming up very, very shortly here on CBC Radio 1. But first, your CBC Winnipeg news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, we've got sunshine. It's 12 degrees. Beautiful morning out there. We are going to see some clouds move in later, and that wind is going to pick up to 40, gusting to 60 around noon today. Our high is 22. Some southwest Manitoba towns are taking a hands-on approach to deal with doctor shortages. Hamiota, Glenborough, and Killarney have all hired a recruitment firm to find more physicians. It costs between $90,000 and $150,000 per doctor. Their health region picks up part of the tab. Killarney Mayor Janice Smith says healthcare is a provincial responsibility, but the municipality wants to make sure people get the care they need.
We need to fill these spots as fast as we possibly can. And actually recruiting is a very wonderful form because these doctors that are coming here are actually well aware of the community that they're coming to. They know that it's rural Manitoba.
Prairie Mountain Health says the region is short around 80 doctors and needs to explore every avenue possible to recruit rural doctors. A warning this morning about being careful around all waterways in spring. A person was rescued from the Assiniboine River near the Donald Street Bridge last evening. Fire paramedics crews found a person being pulled by the strong current towards the junction with the Red River. That person now is in critical condition. The fire paramedic service reminds people waterways can be hazardous this time of year. They ask parents to talk to your children about the dangers of very cold, fast-moving water. The daughter of a missing senior with dementia is calling for a review of his disappearance. Earl Moberg, 81 years old, was last seen in December last year when he went out walking in North Kildonan. His daughter, Britt, says she has contacted the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority because she believes her father's disappearance meets the criteria of a critical incident.
My father, at this point, he is presumed to be deceased, although we haven't found his body. We know that it wasn't a natural death, and we know wandering is a common progression of that illness, but it doesn't need to result in somebody dying from that.
Moberg is also calling for a change in the Silver Alert system. It notifies the public about missing vulnerable adults. She wants the alert to go to people's cell phones in the area where the person went missing. Well, hundreds marched through downtown Winnipeg last night, marking Red Dress Day. Krista Fox came in from Saskatchewan. She is an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and she also works closely with the family of Ashley Moran, who went missing in North Battleford in 2018.
Our people are not statistics. Each and every one of those have family that are out there hurting, and what better to bring them and show these families that their loved ones matter.
Yesterday's march was the 4th annual MMIWG Two-Spirited Walk for Justice. Now, Manitobans with connections to missing Indigenous girls and Two-Spirit people hope a new alert system prevents others from going through the same trauma. The province has partnered with Ottawa to launch the Red Dress Alert System in Manitoba. Julie Dean was at yesterday's Red Dress Day gathering in Winnipeg and says it's about time we had an alert system.
I'm a mom too, and I lived in fear for a long time for my own family. Maybe it'll stop. Maybe the madness and the killing will stop. Some healing can happen now.
Dean was childhood friends with Mercedes Myron, one of the alleged victims of Jeremy Skibicki. Well, WestJet and its mechanics union have agreed on a tentative deal, avoiding a strike by about 670 aircraft maintenance engineers and skilled trade groups. If both sides ratify this contract, it'll be the first approved collective bargaining agreement between WestJet and the Aircraft Mechanics Fraternal Association. Terms of the deal have not been made public. And some unionized chocolate workers in Toronto are now on strike. Workers at Nestle are walking off the job over the issue of pensions and salary progression. Their union, Unifor, says it has 461 members at the Toronto Nestle plant, which makes Kit Kat, Aero, Coffee Crisp, and Smarties. Unifor says it doesn't have any planned negotiation dates with the company. And if those are some of your favorites, Nestle does say they have enough stock on hand. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
You don't want to know what I'm like without my daily Smarties.
I know. You know what? And a Kit Kat? Everyone deserves a break.
Yes, I'm more of a Coffee Crisp guy myself, actually.
Yeah, that's a good one, too.
Yeah,
they're all good.
I know. I'm just a big chocolate guy in general. I don't even want to know how much chocolate I consume. Thank you.
You're a sweetie. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Heather. That's Heather Wells at our CBC News Desk. Abby Adiemi, what's going on in the weather?
Yeah, sunny, clear sky. We're at 12 degrees in the city. We're going to see a warm day. We already started off with the sunshine, and the wind is going to be picking up, and clouds will start to move in sometime this afternoon. We're warming up to a high of 22. Across the province, we'll see Brandon at a high of 18, Thompson at a high of 17, Churchill maybe experiencing a light snow and would get to a high of +1. Dauphin will become cloudy in the afternoon and then we'll get to a high of 19. Gimli, mainly sunny, increasing cloudiness later in the day, and let's get to a high of 20. Steinbach and Morris both going to reach a high of 22. So it's like a warm day ahead for us.
Warm, lovely day. And if you're planning on riding your bike, heads up, we got a call on the commuter line. It says if you're heading down the Assiniboine River Trail, it gets a little mucky after if you're heading westbound, just west of the Donald Street Bridge. So pretty treacherous, not very bikeable is what they said. So look out for that. Otherwise, gorgeous day all around. You should get out on your bike. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and thanks to Abby Adiemi, May McKillop, Brad Lillies for making us sound wonderful on air today. Thank you, team. Really appreciate it. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. It has been an absolute pleasure spending the morning with you, and I hope you get out, do something you love with the people you love today, because that weather, my oh my, it's that weather you dream about all winter. It's going to be a good one. Have yourselves a lovely day. The Current is standing by. Have a good one.